Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the speakers and delegates present over here for the roundtable on interconnection of regional grids in Asia, GCC grid, South Asia grid, ASEAN grid, at India Smart Utility Week 2023 in collaboration with USAID and European Union. Now we are starting with the inaugural session. May I invite our speakers for this session to give keynote address. May I invite Ms. Monali Jaya Hazra. She is a regional energy and clean energy specialist in the Energy Division of Indo-Pacific Office in USAID, India.
ASEAN grid, out of 10 countries, 6 countries are already interconnected, and again USAID been doing great job there in feasibility studies and promoting that. So the background of this is that we mooted this idea of interconnecting the regional grids, which can be done at marginal cost, and from ASEAN to GCC there is a 5-hour time difference, and that can be leveraged. The larger the control area, better it is for managing the intermittent resources which we are adding more and more onto the traditional grid. So in 2019 we brought stakeholders from all these 3 regions. We had complete the chairman, the CEO and all of them from the GCC Interconnection Authority were there. We had people from ASEAN, 4-5 countries were there, and our South Asia team. And in that discussion, it was a full day discussion we had done as a parallel event to ISUW in 2019, March. So everybody unanimously agreed for this interconnection of the regional grids. It's good, win-win situation. And 2 interconnections were proposed. One was interconnecting. I was going to talk about Gujarat, and Gujarat Regulatory Commission member is right here. Welcome, sir. So, one interconnection is connecting GCC grid with India grid, HVDC undersea link from Oman to Gujarat. And another one is a overhead transmission line from India through Myanmar to Thailand. These 2 were by and large unanimously agreed, and we wanted to do feasibility studies. Some paperwork were done in 2019, 2020. After COVID, nothing much could be done, but that agenda we have been talking continuously. And in the meantime, the new initiative of OSOG that came in, and they have appointed a consultant. OSOG, initially it was promoted by MNRE, and then they transferred it to ISA, and ISA with the help from World Bank, they have appointed a consultant, EDF, in fact, EDF International is doing a feasibility study. They have also, I am told, their first report is yet to come, I believe, but the same idea, interconnecting regional grids is at marginal cost, not the GEI. I believe most of you know about the global energy interconnection idea, which is promoted by China in 2012. 2012, SIGRE, they announced it, but nothing much happened until the SGCC president, Lithuania, retired in 2015, and then he started a new organization with the support of Chinese government called Global Energy Interconnection Development and Cooperation Organization, GATECO. So, and they had more than 200 very senior engineers from SGCC on deputation working with GATECO. And in 2 years' time, they had done very good work actually, interconnecting all the globe. 9 horizontal interconnections and 9 vertical interconnections to be built in 50 years. So this is 2018, the basic backbone interconnection report was launched in Beijing. They had invited us from in India. I was there, a couple of other people were also there. So we found that only one line going through India, and they're calling it a global energy interconnection. So in the inaugural session, they had given me a speaking slot. I said that it looked excellent work, but we operate the 3rd largest power system in the world, and you are calling it a global energy interconnection, and only one line going through India is not the best work. You should do it. So they came saying that we had written many times, but there was no response. Then I said there itself, if it is GEI, there will be support. If it is part of Belt and Road, it will not, because that's a bigger problem. So after that only we thought about And the total estimated cost for this 9 interconnections from phase 1 in 2035, phase 2 2050, phase 3 2070. So this 3 phase, they put it somewhere more than $30 trillion. Just imagine building such transmission systems across the world in 50 years, maintaining that is all going to add much bigger cost. These are all new lines they are talking about entirely. So that's when we looked at already regional grids exist. You look at the very good example of Africa. There are Africa power pools. There are 4 or 5 Africa power pools which are functional today. So interconnecting them, they are already talking about African power market, etc. We have actually the Association of Power Utilities of Africa, which is a intergovernmental organization of 46 countries, 57 or 58 utilities. It's a 52-year-old organization. The Director General is here along with his team attending the program. Well, we didn't invite him because we are more talking about Asia. So now they are talking about all Africa power market. There again, AID, USAID and team is helping them with the market design. So the power trade in the regional markets, developing regional power markets and then interconnecting them in the regional power market is the way to go. It's a win-win situation for everybody and we should be able to support each other. And in 2020, we had the ISUW last we have done was 3 years ago in the same premises that time we have done it. 2020 already under the cloud of COVID, not many, we used to have more than 2,000 people coming in before when we used to do it in Manaksha Center. That time it was less crowd, but we had good representation. That's when the European Commission came forward saying that this is an interesting idea where we have interest, we'll be happy to examine feasibility studies. And COVID had delayed everything by 2.5 years, but last year they appointed some consultant to do a scoping study, first about strengthening the South Asia grid itself and then assessing the feasibility of interconnecting with the regional grid. Maybe Mati will talk more about it. And AID being part of all these regional grids for over 2 decades, maybe 25 years, they've been all the SAARC projects and other things which Monali will say. So it's very happy that we've been able to create this platform and bring all the stakeholders in the region, in Asia. In addition to that, European Union and USAID are interested in joining hands to make it a reality. Thank you very much and very warm welcome and hope to have fruitful discussions. Take it one step nearer to fruition. Thank you.
May I invite Mr. Matthew Craig. He is a senior policy officer at European Commission. Welcome you, sir. May I invite Mr. Arun Goyal. He is a member at CERC. Welcome you, sir. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ajay Kumar Pillai. He is a president at India's Market Forum for the welcome address.
Thank you, sir, for welcome address. May I call upon Mr. Arun Goyal to give keynote address. Welcome you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here and also for accommodating me and changing the order of the speakers. I have some personal engagement which is unavoidable, so I have to just rush over there. So this topic on interconnection of regional grids, I think is very, very timely. So I personally believe that when we are talking about more and more RE into the system, and like in India, we have a vision that we'll have 50% of our energy requirements met by renewable energy. So what it means is that due to the intermittent nature of the renewable energy, so we cannot have 24/7 supply by the renewable energy alone. So therefore, in case we want to move that, so at present the target is 50%, but then we are also talking about net zero by 2070. So if we have to go in that direction, so essentially it means is that we will have to have renewable energy or clean sources on 24/7. So for this, essentially there are two ways in which can be achieved over a long term. One is having the interconnection of the regional grids, other is having energy storage systems. As far as energy storage systems are concerned, I mean, progress is being made, but still at present the costs are prohibitive and it's very, very unpredictable. So what will happen in the next few years? But at present they are expensive. But regional grids is something which is very much doable. So when I read that concept paper that was sent, so I think it's a really good idea, and the way we can exploit that 5-hour difference between, say, Southeast Asia and the Gulf, it really looks very, very nice on theory, and I'm very sure that it can also be implemented. So if we look at South Asia, so a lot of progress has already been made in this direction. So, I mean, say between Nepal and India, so we are having both way, I mean, transactions. We are also importing, we are also exporting. Similarly, Bhutan also, most of the time we are importing, but sometimes we also export. To Bangladesh and Myanmar, we are mainly exporting. And in India, we have a framework approved by Government of India. Then we also have a CRC regulations which have been made in that direction. Then there's a CA which have made the detailed procedure. So the framework is very much in place, and that is how we are seeing that now even the foreign countries are also participating in the Indian exchanges. And in the last financial year, the total transaction through the exchanges, presently it is mainly day ahead, but I mean it can also move to the more real-time basis. So if we look at this scenario, I think regional grids is something which would become a reality very soon. But say connecting this regional grids, one is that who will take that responsibility and who would be investing the money. So all that has to be sorted out, and for that we really require harmonization of regulations between the different countries. I mean, not only in the South Asia, but I mean the Pan Asia. So once that is there and some sort of assurance is there at a multilateral level, or say even forums like that by the different countries, that they will be aligning their regulations, then I think investments would come into it and these regional grids would be a reality. So I think I'll end over here, and again thank the organizers for this opportunity. I would have loved to sit in the main roundtable also and listen to all the speakers, because it is something which is very dear to me. So thank you very much. I really have to rush. Okay, thank you.
Now may I call upon Ms. Monali Jaya Hajra to give keynote address.
Thank you so much, Bala. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I had prepared remarks, but I think I'll just, address the points, some of the things which Reji had highlighted. So I'll be specific and talk about some of the things which USAID has been doing. So, I mean, all of us in this room are pretty well aware and now clear that why cross-border power trade should be happening. It's a win-win. Every country needs to has some benefits of it, and if the region needs to move towards more, cleaner clean energy, sustainable future, then this is the way to go. So all that, need not be emphasized again, but USAID has been working in this space for a pretty long time, as again Reji was mentioning. We started an initiative called SAARC, or South Asia Regional Initiative for Energy, which we lovingly called as SAARC, way back in 2000. And, we've seen how the region has changed over a period of time. I personally was not there, but hearing from my colleagues who have involved in the earlier phases of SAARC and now where the region is, it's been a really significant change, dramatic change, and in a very nice and positive way. And yesterday, we had the opportunity to hear Mr. Bariyat. I think you'll also hear him on how cross-border power trade has, or rather interconnection. He presented in a way of transmission interconnection, how it has changed lives or things in Nepal. So that's how, the perception, when SAARC was started, it was such a, why regional cooperation, why countries should be selling a power to other countries when they themselves were deficit in power. So all the issues were there. So what USAID did in 4 phases as a part of SAARC program was focused on different elements of this issue. First focus was more on the, just bringing the stakeholders on a common platform to build, trust, understanding, and network among themselves so that they get to know each other better. The second phase of the SAARC program focused very much on the transmission interconnection, and I think that's the point where USAID focused on undertaking number of pre-feasibility studies to identify transmission corridors between various countries in the region, and some of them, we are very glad to note, some of them came into fruition, such as the Dhalkebar-Muzaffarpur line or the Bangladesh Barampara-Brahmaputra line. So all that, set the groundwork. But since then, on the third phase and fourth phase, we have been more focusing on the enabling environment, what sort of, framework needs to be in place in order to support cross-border power trade, in order to support power markets. And specifically in the fourth phase, which was implemented by IRADE, and we started in 2012. So I'm talking about a time period from 2000 to 2022. And the last phase started in 2012 and was implemented over a 10 years period till 2022. We did a bit of change in approach in the sense that we partnered the countries in the region to be part of the SAARC program. So SAARC, at that point of time, we established an institutional framework which included, a senior official as a part of the project steering committee, as well as 3 technical task forces on key core issues, which were highlighted, which was also highlighted by Member Goyal also. One was on harmonization of regulations, legislation. Second was on advancement of transmission interconnection, and third was on power markets. And we had relevant stakeholder from each of the countries a part of these task forces. This, I think, was helped us really to understand the needs of the country and push things forward. And as a result of which, over the period of 10 years or so, we've done, so many studies. Many of our stakeholders say that SAARC did a lot of study. Yes, there was a lot of studies, but I think there was some value to those studies as it, as it established the groundwork and framework for much of the framework for the region. And most importantly, established that, yes, there is a value or there is a benefit of cross-border power trade through various studies, modeling studies, analytical studies, and various institutions or platforms that was established. Okay, now that I've talked so much about SAARC, I should transition into the current phase. So SAARC ended in 2022, and USAID launched its new program, South Asia Regional Energy Partnership, which we call as SAARC. So this program takes over where SAARC ended. It takes over the institutional framework, the framework which I was mentioning in terms of the project steering committee and the 3 task forces, as well as many of the things which were ongoing under SAARC. So we initiated a number of things under SAARC which as a regional program, it takes a bit of time to achieve that. So some of the things which we initiated was like a South Asia Forum for System Operator, South Asia Forum for Transmission Utilities, another forum which focused on power markets. So these forums, the concept, the need was, we did a white paper as a part of SAARC program, but now the implementation has been taken over by SAARC. So SAARC essentially, it's a 5-year program. We started in 21, goes on till 2026. One of the key focus area is to support power markets and integration of the grid. Here, there are 4 or 5 core areas. One is the institutionalization, as I was mentioning. We are looking at not only working with existing regional institutions, for example, SAFIR. We have a pretty robust engagement with SAFIR and have been working with them in supporting a working group focused on energy cooperation. So number of studies, knowledge sharing, a lot of trainings, knowledge sharing programs are organized as a part of that. We also engage with SAARC, although it's not as fast moving as we would like, and some small engagement also with BIMSTEC. In addition to that, we've also trying to see how to take the concept of the Forum of System Operator, Forum of Transmission Utility and Energy Markets forward. So that's something which we've been working on and will continue to engage with. One of the beauty of SAARC is that it not only allows us to work regionally, but also to do some specific focused intervention in each of our South Asian country. And it covers Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. What it doesn't cover from SAARC is Afghanistan and Pakistan. So the rest of the 6 countries are covered as a part of SAARC. So the other elements which we are focusing on, how to support the countries in the region in setting up their own trading entities, and also helping them in participating in the Indian Power Exchange. So that's a big focus under it. As a part of this, we are also providing hand-holding support to countries in strengthening their data system, in strengthening their capacities to operate in the Indian Power Exchange. The third element focuses very much on, again, consensus building. That's an ongoing and continuous effort. We believe that it will continue to happen. So that's the third element, where we are working through 2 different types of stakeholder other than the stakeholders from the energy sector, one being the think tank forum and the other being the parliamentarian. So both, in case of both, we are trying to engage with think tanks around the country, around South Asia, and parliamentarians to again give a push to the whole concept of cross-border power trade, why it is beneficial, why all countries need to be, engaged. So everybody in this room may understand, but many of the people, civil society and all may not understand. So that's what we are trying to do through these 2, forums or institution. The 4th piece of the work again focuses on, how to support these transmission interconnection. And one of the things, USAID brings in, the way USAID works is through technical assistance and a lot on capacity building. So on that element, what we are looking to support is through transactional advisory services. And also, we are setting another forum on investment. So that's a sort of a platform where we'll bring together other development partners such as EU and financing agencies, private sectors, and look at some of the elements of what holds back the private sector in engaging in the regional programs, regional infrastructure program per se. What are the de-risking opportunities or de-risking instruments could be provided. So this would be more focused in terms of seeing and helping, how we attract more private sector engagement in the South Asia infrastructure development, which has been primarily now at this stage been limited to public sector. And then I'm trying to think. And then capacity building is obviously a big part of our focus. One of the things which I'll quickly mention is the South Asia Energy Database, which was established as a part of SAARC, but we continue to take this forward as a part of SAARC. And here now, after creating a database of energy from all the South Asian countries, the focus is on strengthening the systems within each of these countries on how they collect data, how they report it, how they maintain it. So it's kind of, also ensuring that there is a continuous updation of the information on the database, and each of the countries have access to, transparent and transparent information and so on and so forth. So broadly, that's what we have been doing as a part of SAARC. We will continue to engage with number of stakeholders, and obviously stakeholders from the energy sectors are definitely big focus, but also, as I mentioned, other stakeholders too, like civil society and parliamentarians. So that's it from my end, and happy to take any questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful thoughts. May I call upon Mr. Matthew Cray to give keynote address. Welcome, yes.
So, good afternoon to all, and first of all, many thanks to Reggie and Monali that we as EU can join you in the organization of this session this afternoon. It's really a very important topic also for the EU. And we are really very keen on supporting the South Asia and also the wider Asia region on this issue of interconnections and regional market developments. How come that we also, let's say, are connected today to this session and express this interest? Well, we have a quite long and well-established dialogue with India, energy dialogue with India under the Clean Energy and Climate Partnership. Okay. They were confusing me with you. So that's already well established since 2016, reaffirmed several times, and we have a lot of activities on various aspects of the clean energy transition. And we also have, of course, very good and long-standing cooperation programs with many Asian countries, South Asian countries, but also countries in the wider Asian region. And in our clean energy and climate partnership, and also in the cooperation partnerships, renewables has been the consistent and continuous focus of attention. So this is something that has never disappeared from our radar in this cooperation over the years. And as we all know, with the ambitions that are increasing a lot also in this region, the issue of integration of renewables is crucial. And it has been said by the speakers before. This is one of the reasons, and for us, the most important reason why we are interested to support these efforts in South Asia and the wider Asia region. It's this focus on integration of renewables and helping in this way in the decarbonization agenda and the pathways towards climate neutrality. In the different dialogues that we had, we were also witnessing that there was a clear interest, certainly also from India, on dialoguing, on discussing, on exchanging more on these issues of interconnection and regional power markets. We have a series of regulatory dialogues with India, and this issue emerged there. And the reason why India and others expressed this interest is, of course, that we have this experience in the EU, within the EU, to build this very large internal market for energy, for electricity specifically. We have been doing these efforts for over 20 years now, and I think it's let's say the most encompassing efforts in interconnections and regional market development that have been happening worldwide. So all levels and all dimensions have been addressed there. So the political level commitment, the policy approximation, the creation of institutions at institutional, at regional level, be it for cooperation between regulators, structures or TSOs. Also very important, the methodologies to assess what can be projects of priority for interconnecting and for regional markets. Technical level cooperation on network codes and so on, harmonizing them, and specifically also instruments to support infrastructure at the regional level. And now the interest that we had to also support these efforts outside of Europe is, let's say, now close to its materialization. We have done projects on this also with African countries. We have supported countries in our southern neighborhood in Northern Africa on this. We are thinking also about a support project to ASEAN on this. But certainly now our focus is also on supporting South Asia in this. I think Reggie already mentioned it briefly. Our goal is that we can start with such a support project towards the end of this year. And to this end, we had recruited experts to also see with the stakeholders in the region and with other players that are active in this field, how we can best position this project, how we can work best in synergy. So the experts that did this for us are here with us on the second table, Akanksha Chowri and Alias Wardak. And our motivation in this is threefold. As I said, we want to make sure through the contacts with the stakeholders in the region what is already existing and what do they feel now as the most relevant issues to address. It's also to work in full synergy and complementarity with USAID, who has been active in this field, as Monali said, for 15 years, so that we can best work in an efficient and in a synergistic way. And then our specific focus will also be, of course, what can we bring in from this EU experience, not in a simplistic way of thinking that you can repeat experiences literally in other parts of the world. But as I said, there is this vast set of experiences that we have. How can methodologies that we used be tuned to local contexts in other parts of the world? How can the development of institutions, the problems and the advantages that we have seen in Europe, which lessons can be brought to other parts of the world? So we had yesterday also a session with stakeholders from different South Asian countries and also from the EU. We see some issues that certainly we want to take up in our study, like the focus on looking at infrastructure from a more regional perspective. So how can we move from a bilateral assessment of good projects to a regional assessment of priority projects? There is also an issue that we want to look into in terms of the institutional frameworks at regional level. How can they be strong enough to take this forward? I think also Monali said there is a lack of harmonization of regulatory frameworks or policy frameworks of codes and so on. Can a stronger regional framework, governance framework, institutional framework be helpful in this? So these are a number of issues preliminary that come out of our scoping study that we want to focus upon. And we of course hope that the session this afternoon will give us further information so that we can well define the intervention that we would plan in the next years. And also the session will help to further develop our dialogue with the local stakeholders, with USAID and with others, so that our project will best serve the interests, the needs of the region in the coming years. So we're looking very much forward to the exchanges this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you everyone for sharing your valuable contributions and insightful thoughts. Now I would request Mr. Rajiv Kumar Pillai to hand over the token of appreciation to our panelists. Next, Matthew Cray. I would request panelists to stand the group photo. Good afternoon, everyone. Now we are moving to session 1 on envisaging trans-regional energy connectivity between the South Asia region, Southeast Asia region and Gulf region, prospects and opportunities. May I call upon chair and moderator for this session, V.K. Agarwal. He is a executive director, ex-executive director at POSOCO SAARC. Welcome you, sir. Now may I invite our speakers for this session, starting with Mr. Rakesh Kumar, Senior General Manager, Power Grid Corporation of India. Now may I request Mr. Durgananda. He is a Senior Director, Transmission Directorate, Nepal Electricity Authority, Nepal. Welcome you, sir. May I request Mr. Abdur Rashid Khan. He is a Project Director, Chief Engineer, Power Grid Company of Bangladesh. Welcome you, sir. May I request Ms. Sonam Tobje. She is a CEO at Bhutan Power Corporation, Royal Government of Bhutan. Welcome you, ma'am. May I request Mr. B.S. Bhairava. He is a Director at Central Electricity Authority of India. Welcome you, sir. Now I would like call upon Mr. Rajiv Ratnapanda. He is a Power Market Specialist at SAARC for theme presentation. Welcome you, sir. Now may I request Mr. Pankaj Kurana. He is a Program Specialist at ISA. Welcome you, sir. Now I am handing over the session to moderator V.K. Agarwal. Take forward the sessions.
Talking of connection of South Asia grid with the Southeast Asia on one side and GCCI on the other side. The three grids, as we know, South Asia grid is of the order of around 500 gigawatt, GCC of the order of around 160 to 170 gigawatt, and ASEAN is of the order of around 280 to 300 gigawatt. These are the large three grids which are already operating, and all the three grids, they have the cross-border transactions. In fact, South Asia, all of you know very well, there 8 countries are there. ASEAN, there are 6 countries are there, and ASEAN, there are 10 countries are there. And luckily, all the 3 regions, they have the cross-border transactions. South Asia already, you know, around 18 to 20 gigawatt hour, that is the type of transaction which is taking place. GCCI, generally a 400 kV link they have made. It is mainly for the security purpose they had made it to start with, but now they have started doing the cross-border transactions also. Right now it is of the order of 1 gigawatt hour, but they can go up to around 20 gigawatt hour. That is for the GCCI is concerned. And ASEAN already they are touching a cross-border transactions of the order of around 50 gigawatt hour. So these are the large 3 regions, and already those type of connectivities are very well there. And connecting these 3 grids, basically the main idea is to harness more and more solar energy, so that there is a time zone difference of around 5.5 hours or so. So that type of time zone diversity can be achieved, so we can add lot of solar, and grid balancing of course is attained. We have a very enlightened speakers with us. We have I'll just read out the speakers also, and then in the audiences also I am finding people who have been associated with the grid. I'll just read first, I'll read the panelists. We have Mr. Rajesh Kumar. He is Senior GM from Power Grid Corporation of India. Rajesh? Yeah. We have Mr. Durganandan Bariyat. He is from Nepal Electricity. Mr. Sonam Tobje. He is from Bhutan. Mr. Abdur Rashid Khan. He is Project Director from the PGCB. And Mr. Bhairava is still not there, but Mr. Bhairava is also expected. He is from CA. And Rajiv Ratan Panda, he is from SAARC. He has made a very wonderful theme presentations. He would be doing that. Then in the participants also, I am finding the presence of the participants from the different countries, Bhutan, Nepal, even in the audience is also there. I am finding the Mr. Barpanda, Director Market Operation, Grid Operation, Mr. Baba, CMD, CMD POSCO, Mr. Mehta. So a lot of, why I am telling these names are, they are the grid operators mainly for doing this operation for the last time. So I think we are going to have a wonderful discussions. And before I start, we'll have a theme presentation, and since the time is limited, okay, so first let us hear the theme presentation, and then we will make some format so that we can restrict the presentation period in time. One, Mr. Pankaj, yeah, sorry, it's in the list, yeah, I am extremely sorry. Mr. Pankaj Khurana from International Solar Alliance, he's here, and a very, very important person. Mr. Khurana. Okay. So I'll request Mr. Rajiv Ratan Panda to make the theme presentation, and then we will see how best we can utilize the time.
So thank you for inviting to this session, and I will straight away go into the presentation. I will maybe try to skip some slides because the basic concept is already told during the keynote address and also by Mr. Agarwal. So I will try to be as fast as possible. So I intend to cover all the regions with this format. So I will focus on all the three regions, discuss about the economic aspects, also the level of cross-border transmission interconnection, the current nature of the CBT volume and the nature of the market, what are the emerging policy landscapes, and what are the opportunity for trans-regional transmission interconnection, little bit of OSOGO, and what are some of the three interconnection that we may see as we discussing about the interregional interconnection. So looking at the macroeconomic situation, if we look at the three regions, very interestingly we find that last year, if we see who are the regions that grew more than 5%, it's basically the four regions that grew more than 5%, and three are GCC, I mean the Gulf region, South Asia region, and the South Asia region. So in terms of economic growth prospects, these regions are having a solid economic growth, which also makes a case why some of these regions could actually go for interregional interconnections. Of course, there is a lot of diversity in these regions. We have very low per capita consumption countries like Nepal, maybe around 235, whereas we have countries like Bahrain who will be around 18,000 per capita consumption. So very diverse countries we are covering as a part of this large region. If we look at the GCC, currently it is around 167 gigawatts. Almost 99% is dominated by the fossil fuels, predominantly oil and gas. Whereas if we look at South Asia, it will be around 490 gigawatts. Again dominated by to a large extent by coal, though renewables are catching up. And if we look at ASEAN, it is around 285 gigawatts, again dominated by primarily by coal and gas. In GCC, the capacity will be around 2.4 gigawatt of interconnection capacity, and they are also planned that they wanted to interconnect with the what they call it pan-Arab electricity market. In case of South Asia, current interconnection capacity is around 4.5 gigawatts, and it is expected by 2040 it could be around 43.88 gigawatts. And in case of ASEAN, the current level of interconnection is around 7.7 gigawatts, and by 2040, somewhere around 26 to 30 gigawatt of interconnection could happen inside those regions. So we're talking about the interconnection inside these regions. In terms of the cross-border volumes, in case of GCC, the volumes are not that much because the idea was to do the reserve sharing, and later they started about the trading. So it's around 1 billion units. In case of South Asia, it has touched something like 18.7 billion units, though there was slight declining in the year 2022, but now it's catching up. Very interestingly, in the ASEAN region, the trade has increased significantly. Now currently it is around 49 billion units. And the interesting thing to note here is that it's basically because of the Thailand's increase in the imports. Thailand's import was around 25 billion units in 2019, and currently it has reached around 35 billion units. So huge growth has happened in ASEAN countries. And in terms of trade, mostly it is, in case of GCC, it's mostly in-kind trade, not necessarily the market form of trade. But in case of South Asia, we have both bilateral, commercial, and also the trade through power exchange, which is unique among the region. And in ASEAN, most of the trade are unidirectional in nature. However, they do have something called LTMS, which is first of its kind trilateral, multilateral interconnection in the ASEAN region. So I was just talking about the LTMS here. The Laos is selling electricity now to Singapore, though it is a very small, around 100 megawatt of electricity is being sold, but this also demonstrates that how trilateral and multilateral transactions are also happening inside the region. What I feel is that some of the large interconnection that we talk about, it's also depend on the larger policy landscape in which we are discussing. So in that context, some of these, all the countries I try to capture have massive net zero targets and climate goals. And in each of the region, we find leading countries, like in GCC, we find Saudi Arabia having large targets. Similar in South Asia, we find India taking the lead. And also in ASEAN, we find both Indonesia and Thailand taking the lead. So all the countries has come up with huge net zero targets, which translates into the needs for why they would like to go for rapid decarbonization. Very briefly on the OSOGO, so this idea now reinforces the idea of the regional interconnection. So it considers India at the fulcrum and divided into far west and far east. So in the far east, it covers countries like GCC, and in the far east covers mostly the South Asian countries. And we know that what is the reason why it's to be integrated. Sun never sets, and there are huge opportunity for interconnecting renewable energy. And interconnector can also act as a means and solution to manage intermittencies. In the keynote address, it is also mentioned that when we talk about inter-regional interconnection, it's also not necessarily that we're building one line all the way from one region to another. It's more about integrating various regional markets that are already being developed. So here we see that a lot of markets are already being developed at the various level. It will be more about how we interconnect all these regional grids, so that the whole idea of the translational interconnection could materialize. OSOGO, we know they talk about that in the first phase they will try to connect GCC, South Asia and Southeast Asia, and then they want to interconnect the power pools of the African countries, and then probably the whole world in that sense. I understand that one study is being undergoing as a part of OSOGO initiative, and ISA, International Solar Alliance, is leading this initiative, and hopefully that will also provide certain ideas or concrete proposals on the interconnection that will come. In India, Ministry of Power has already constituted a task force on OSOGO. The task force has also studied the techno-economic feasibility of interconnection of regional grids between Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa and Europe. And initially, it is decided to focus on the Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Maldives would be explored as a kind of priority. And I think recently Indian technical team visited Maldives for studying the technical specification. The charter of OSOGO, I think, has been finalized, and steering committee of OSOGO is also being set up. Talking about what are some connections? Yes, we know there is a huge, the time difference, which is one of the basic why this idea of connecting different regions are being talked about. And in case of GCC, of course, if we extend beyond the GCC, if we talk about Egypt and others, the time difference could be even more substantial. And of course, the fuel mix are different in different regions. So that also gives us scopes why we need to why need to tap into the time zone or reserve sharing or resource complementary, managing the diversity of the peak, and so on and so forth. If we talk about the South Asia GCC interconnection, the connection of Oman, India was discussed previously, and we hear very briefly. There are some estimates that if we plan for some 3 gigawatt of GCC India interconnection, it could be costing something around $3.5 billion US. And of course, GCC also has plans to interconnect with pan-Arab electricity market. And similarly, let's say if a solar park in Egypt can sell excess green peaking power to India, given the 3.5 hour of time difference. In case of the South Asia ASEAN connection, again, of course, Myanmar is the gateway to Southeast Asia. And here also, though already India has a very small connections with Myanmar, so almost 3 low capacity connections are being talked about, and also there are discussions that there could be connection of HVDC interconnections between India and Myanmar at a higher level. And if we see the territory, maybe so I think in Myanmar, from the Mekithala, the 500 kV ring are being built inside Myanmar. So if some connection happens from the More side, and then gets connected to Mekithala, and then it carries forward to the Thailand part. And as we discussed that already, the ASEAN grid is already having a lot of interconnection. So once this kind of links happens, you kind of hooked into the ASEAN grid that already being developed as a part of ASEAN initiative. Then little bit on the strengthening of the South Asia grid. We know that India-Sri Lanka interconnection has been talked about for some time, but various studies has been done on this particular interconnection, but initial cost was around $963 million, and then further reduction in the cable length were discussed, and then the cost reduced to 770 and 694. But even then also it was found financially challenging, and then the further study has been conducted where it is considered the overall line, not necessarily the undersea cable, and here the cost has come down to 460 million USD, and certain fresh financial analysis are also being conducted. Similarly, also there has been some talks about connecting Maldives from India. Of course, initially it was talked to connect through Lakshadweep, but as I understand that probably that may not be feasible. Again, Maldives is primarily fossil-based, generation. So if green-based interconnection happens, then it also will help the decarbonization of the Maldives power system. In terms of way forward, I would say that based on our understanding of working in SAARC and interacting on an international level, I would suggest that building regional, sub-regional and global consensus will be a key, because countries has to agree to some of this interconnection. Then we also need to navigate the centralized versus decentralized approach. While we are talking about large centralized grid, but there is also a revolution happening on the decentralized level. So how we navigate some of these things. Then, of course, navigating the geopolitical realities. Sometimes we have idealism that, okay, these lines will bring this kind of benefit, but what are some of the realistic assumptions? Building feasible, credible regional pilots, because it will all depend how we are able to build the credible regional pilots of the regional interconnection. Then again, also navigating the economies of scale, non-engineering costs, right of the way, environmental, land acquisition, these will also come to the discussion. Commercial feasibility, and also, the arguments of large-scale storage versus inter-regional integration. So some of these things, I think, as this discussion deepens further, some of these discussion will be a part of the whole discussion. I guess as a part of Osogo study, they must be factored in some of these things. In terms of a few points, I would suggest that maybe once the basic ideas and the more details are come out, maybe pre-feasibility study of this inter-regional grid connection should be conducted. I think we should do certain EVS kind of assessment to prove how it is utilizing the efficiencies, what kind of efficiencies it is bringing, what kind of vulnerability some of these interconnections will have, and also what are the strategic implications. So what I feel is that when we are calculating some of the interconnection, we should apply these three parameters to test the feasibility and credibility of those interconnections. Otherwise, sometimes these things may get difficult. I would also suggest that to democratize your dialogue. Somehow the information in this space is, seems to be very, very limited. It's very difficult to find information. So it will be important to democratize your dialogue, build joint analysis and knowledge exchange on the subject of inter-regional interconnection. And previously our speaker spoke from the European case, and this is a European example that how number of dialogues, forums has come together, which actually ultimately help the European integration. So when we are thinking of this inter-regional integration, are we also building this kind of ecosystem which will ensure this kind of transition? Then also maybe a broad pan-regional transmission integration plan could be thought of, not necessarily going with the country specific, but the broad master plan. And the fifth point is that I think it's also important to bring civil society and think tanks to this discussion, because some of this discussion will have larger societal implications, and if they are not a part of this discussion, sometimes it will be very difficult to build the consensus that I talked about. So maybe some sort of civil society network and think tanks could be think of. And also, lastly, we also needs to bring the private sector into this picture. So something like some CEO dialogues and etc. could be thought of, so that private sector are also a part of the discussion, not when everything is decided and then at a later stage they become a part of this discussion. So these are some of my thoughts I just thought to highlight, and with this I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
There were around 25-30 slides. Each slide was having another 2 to 3 slides in itself. And it is a very descriptive presentation. Let us again give a big applause to Rajiv Ratan Panda. I know the type of efforts which might have gone in making this. In fact, he has given all the details of all the regions. Rajiv, can it be shared with all the participants? Yes, sir. Bala, it can be shared with all the participants. The presentation subsequently. Okay. Okay, no. Yeah. Okay. So now we can start the discussions. I will start inviting the panelists. What we will do is, first I'll request Mr. Pankaj Khurana to give the perspective of One Solar, One World Grid, so that he may present the facts, what exactly are the concepts towards this thing. Then I'll request Mr. Rajesh Kumar to talk about the technical parts about this thing, what could be the technical challenges and all those things. And then we can go with the participants from Nepal, from Bhutan, and Bangladesh. So this is the sequence we will take. Another point is regarding the time frame. As we know, there is a constraint of time. Under the DSM mechanism, deviation settlement mechanism, there is a thing called zero crossing. So basically, what the grid operators have to do, they have to keep their draw near the neutral line. And every 6 blocks, they have to cross that neutral line. Why I am giving this example is, to the requested the panelists, when they are talking, kindly keep your talks very close to the subject. You have to basically talk about the interconnection between the South Asia, Southeast Asia, and GCCI. And the moment I find that you are drifting slightly towards her, kindly excuse me, I'll try to interrupt because it is only because of the time limitation. And I'll request that each panelist, if they can give their initial talks, complete their talks within a time period of around 4 minutes or so, 4 to 5 minutes. So that is how we can have around 20 to 30 minutes for the question answer session. Because we are finding a lot of participants are there and we should give sufficient time. So there also you can give your views. So please excuse me in the beginning itself. So this is the format I am going to take and the philosophy for controlling the time period. So Mr. Pankaj Khurana, I'll request because basically you are One Solar, One World Grid. You are very closely associated. So I would request you to kindly deliberate upon what are the plans. Rajiv has given something in presentation, but what are exactly? So what are the plans, how we intend to connect the GCCIA, how we intend to connect the Southeast Asia, and any other broad details about this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agarwal. First of all, I will definitely follow your advice to restrict my dialogue within 4 or 5 minutes. I am Pankaj Khurana. I am representing International Solar Alliance. International Solar Alliance is an intergovernment organization having member countries about 114 now, led by Chair India and along with the co-chair France. Basically, we are proud to, in fact, have this OSOVOG initiative, which was put forth by Honorable PM in First Assembly of ISA in 2018. And primarily, this OSOVOG initiative aimed to connect the regional power grids across continents and promote the use of renewable energy resources. As Mr. Panda has already explained about the sun, as sun never sets, sun is always available at some of the geographical location. So OSOVOG will harness the solar as well as wind as well as hydro resources. For this OSOVOG, ISA has been defined as a nodal agency by MNRE to study, to have a technical study in basically in 3 phases. for which we have appointed a consortium of consultants, that is EDF France, AETS, and TERI from India. At present, I can brief like phase 1 study, which consists of data and all the assumptions related to all countries across basically South Asia, Southeast Asia, GCC, as well as Africa also. That database have already been compiled by our consultant, and that is on hourly basis, very elaborative. 32 million iterations are there. So based on that, database have been prepared, and the sources are IEA, IRENA, and WEC. That report is final now. After basically getting it formally cleared by MNRE, we will be going to have phase 2, that is the Plexo simulation. Plexo simulation basically will do the techno-economic viability study, in which the ultimate goal is to have the 2 to 3 pilot interconnection, say for one in South Asia, Southeast Asia, one will be in Middle East, and one will be in to Africa connection. So, sir was asking me like, what connection will it be? Most likely like India, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, as it is already known that few of the connections which are in horizon of 2030, that will be taken care in simulation, as well as India, Myanmar, Thailand, of course, it will be taken care. For Middle East, India, Oman is there, but I can say there are some other options available which will be simulated based on basically the realistic situation of techno-economic conditions. Then later on, and for up to Africa, okay, say to Egypt, and that it will be connected to all the power pools of Africa. And finally, it has to connect it to Europe ultimately, so as to form a global grid. Now, in fact, after the phase 2, the phase 3 study will come up maybe another, we are expecting another 4 or 5 months, maybe even lesser than that, 3-4 months for phase 3. That will be giving a roadmap for the complete institutional framework, dialogues with the country which are involved in these interconnections, and then this roadmap vision will be basically presented to the MNRE finally for their approval and for further taking up with the countries how to implement these corridors. So this is for OSOWOC study. The ISA as a nodal agency, having all the member countries with us, will definitely create an enabling environment for the deployment of solar energy in all these regional countries, as well as for cross-border transmission interconnections. Now, coming to the OSOWOC prospects, I should define the major prospects will be energy security, because the fuel mix and seasonal supply demand will be taken care by this CBET, being from like Nepal and Bhutan be the energy exporter, and Bangladesh will be mostly be considered like demand driver. So this energy security aspects will be taken care, and India as a fulcrum will be definitely with renewable energy resources increasing, definitely uncertainty in scheduling, but with CBET, with Bangladesh, it can be taken care. The other benefits definitely include the green energy corridors, just like in India we have done. So it will be further be done with trans countries. The challenge, this will be definitely be win-win situation for all the countries with sustained cooperation and conducive environment and economic and environmental benefits. It definitely be giving a benefit to increase the green jobs as well as innovation technologies. And for this, ISA is already basically into process of capacity building. In fact, we are now presently organizing the study tours of WAP, that is West African Power Pool, along with Grid India. Similar way, we will definitely plan for South Asia, Southeast Asia countries also, for some study tours here, how to integrate the renewable into their systems. That I think that will be very useful for the countries to further going for the renewable energy integration. Of course, some challenges will be there as we envisage, like technical challenges will be there, like some undersea cables are coming at a much deeper basically places. So these challenges, of course, we have to see the innovative technologies, some political situation that is very important. So we'll have to initiate the dialogue as soon as possible, for which ISA will be planning accordingly. The cost, of course, we have to see during the modeling plexos, and insecurity, cyber attacks and all that needs to be taken care during the final implementation and the roadmap formalization. So with this, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you at the broad level. Only one very quick query. So you stated that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 studies. So roadmap would be presented to MNRE after all the 3 studies are completed, or?
The formal procedure is MNRE, of course, has to, in fact, vet all the phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Yes. Yeah, because it was earlier basically targeted for 2021, but because of COVID and some other issues like the consultant. Hello. Okay. Our consultant has submitted the phase 1 complete study, and our task force also. The appointed by MOP have already validated that mostly. So now if we'll see further time frame, I can just expect maybe another 2-3 months for phase 2 for simulation, another 3 months for final roadmap.
Okay.
So totaling of 6, 7, 8.
Okay, because as Rezi was telling, the time period is also very, very important factor. Of course, it's a complicated scheme, but the time frame, that is also important. Anyhow, so we'll now move to, thank you very much, Pankaj. We'll move to Mr. Rajesh Kumar. Rajesh, what we would like from you is, he has told about the scheme and all that on broad basis. From Rajesh, we want specifically the technical challenges, what you feel may be faced, like if we connect the GCCIA, for instance, Oman and all that, maybe at a distance of around 3,000 kilometers, perhaps it may have to be HVDC only. What type of connections, what type of challenges you feel could be there when we connect it to the Southeast Asia, what type of possibilities could be there, whether it could be AC could also be there, or there also it has to be HVDC. And for these connections, some broad idea, and what type of challenges you face, specifically on these points. You have a presentation?
Yes, small presentation, sir.
But if it is a...
There is few, 3 or 4 slides.
But will it answer these queries also,
sir.
what I am asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I will try, sir, whatever I have prepared, but I was certainly not prepared for dealing the technical issues. Anyway,
Time.
sir, thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on envisioning trans-regional energy connectivity between Southeast Asia, South Asia, and GCC countries. I'm thankful to the Pandaji for giving elaborate description of interregional interconnections, and at the same time, Khuranaji also have given a broad overview of One Sun, One World, One Grid. So here I would like to say that these 3 regions, interconnection among these 3 regions have a great opportunity for optimal utilization of resources as well as meeting the future challenges. See, earlier also we had many interconnections, and these interconnections were primarily developed for meeting the energy requirement and optimal utilization of resources. Now we are focusing on development, further strengthening these links for a greater purpose, and the purpose is environmental issues, to how to deal with the environmental issues. So looking at the geography of these 3 regions as well as the resources, we see that there are lots of opportunity for exchange of renewable power among these regions. The time diversity is one of the regions, and it has been already highlighted that we have a great time diversity among these regions. Another diversity is the resource diversity. Presently, you can see that these 3 regions have different energy mix. We have seen in the presentation of Pandaji also, some regions have very high renewables, like GCC is very few RE is there. Then Southeast Asian countries, it is around 15% RE power is there. Then South Asia, we have around 24% of renewable generation. Then in the future, it is expected that these penetration of RE would increase. With the increase in penetration of RE, it requires different kinds of balancing reserves and technical things to deal with the variability, uncertainty associated with the renewable generation. So how we will tackle all these things? So in order to tackle all these things, as we spread the geographical area, we see that the variability, uncertainty, intermittency associated with the renewable generation can be handled in a better way. We look at the potential at all these three regions. You can see that from these three pie charts, in South Asian region and GCC region and Southeast Asian region has a huge renewable energy potential. And out of that, very few has been tapped. Coming to the existing cross-border interconnections, we have seen and we will see, listen from other participants about these cross-border interconnections with the South Asia and our neighboring countries. I will not go into the details of this. Totally, presently, we have around 4,233 megawatt installed generation capacity, and not installed generation capacity, existing cross-border links, and very soon it will be double to 8,500 megawatt of interregional capacity, cross-border capacity. We have seen the ASEAN grid. In the ASEAN grid, the 10 countries are interconnected. But see, here the challenge is the Philippines is not interconnected with all other ASEAN countries because Philippines is having a different frequency. The sir was talking about the challenges associated with the interconnection of the grid. So there are a few challenges. One of the challenges is look at the frequency. If we have same frequency, then it is easy to synchronously interconnect. If we have different frequency, then it is difficult. At the same time, we have interconnection with the Nepal and Bangladesh as well. With the Nepal, presently we have many radial interconnections, but we have some technical challenges, and we are tackling those challenges through system protection schemes and other measures so that we will tackle the, see, in South Asian grid, Indian grid is having huge inertia, large inertia. Other grids, neighboring grids, they are having a small grids, they have a small inertia, at the same time their fault levels are also low. I'm not going into much details of it, but these are the major challenges. When we connect two grids, then the inertia and fault levels are major challenges. We must see how to interconnect these two grids so that both the grids are stable, remains stable in case of any contingency. While we decide the cross-border interconnection links, we must look at the capacity of the link. What should be the capacity of the link? For that, we need to carry out the load flow studies, load generation balance under different scenarios to find out how much should be the capacity of the link, how much surplus or deficit is available between the countries or between the regions to come to a point of determining the capacity of the link. At the same time, location is also very important. Yesterday we had seen that Nepal is having interconnection at the 5 points with the 5 major points with the Indian grids, and we are having several 132 kV links, but major 5 links. So we have staged 2 grids in such a manner that we have stable operation, we fulfill the reliability criteria, say N-1 contingency criteria and other criteria. With the Bangladesh, initially we had one HVDC back-to-back link, and we had one double circuit line. In order to improve the reliability of the system, we build another systems and we build another back-to-back this block. So these are the things when we think upon interconnection between the countries, we look at all these parameters. At the same time, whether it should be synchronous or asynchronous, it is a big debate because it requires thinking. What should be, when we go for HVDC, then we have to incur cost on the terminal equipment. Yes, sir.
So Rajesh, basically, what the point was, between now we are talking only of the South Asia and GCCI and South Asia and Southeast Asia.
Yes, sir.
So between South Asia and GCCI, since the distance is, if we are using the sea cable and all that, and distance is of the order of 2,000. So yeah, so it has to be only HVDC or AC can also be there.
So covering more than 1,000 kilometers, nearly around 1,000 kilometers, say 1,200 kilometers between, say, India and Oman. So AC is not recommended at all.
Okay.
AC is not recommended at all. But when we are connecting these two grids, there are some issues of fault level also. Because then we have to go for, in HVDC also we have different technologies, like BSC based technology or LCC based technology. So we need to select the technology depending on the two grids strengths. Like we want to connect Indian grid with the Maldives grid. So Maldives grid is a very small grid. So we cannot have LCC connection between India and Maldives. So and it is a distance is also more than 750 kilometers. So here we have to go for HVDC at the same time BSC based technology. So in order to derive at finalize the link, type of the link, capacity of the link, we go into the detailed technicality of it. Unfortunately, we have mature technology available to interconnect several grids in European Union. We have many submarine cables and links, HVDC links. That is not a problem. And deep sea cables are also under progress. Many deep sea cables are also being built. So, like sir is telling about India-Oman link. India and Oman link is a big challenge of having depth of more than 700 meters. So we have depth of 700 meters between India and Oman. So it requires a different, see, we don't have ships to carry those kind of cables. And joining a cable undersea is a challenge. So we need to see how to overcome these, and there are technologies available. It requires first thing is that we have to finalize the link. Technology is available, there is no problem of technology, finalize the link. So, but we have to look at the same time, whether it should be overhead or underground. Sometimes we also need to see that sometimes overhead is not possible, then we need to go for the underground cable over on. Protection is a major issue when we interconnect two grids. So we look at the protection also. So these are the things, and these things have been overcome. You can see in the South Asian grids, the 10 countries are interconnected. Laos, Thailand, LTMS links he talked about. It started with 100 megawatt. Now 300 more than 300 megawatt is flowing through this Laos, Thailand, this multilateral link. There is a talk going on about the Australia-Singapore link also. Look at this African South GCC link. The GCC has established link for the reliability purpose. There is a HVDC back-to-back at Saudi Arabia, and we have a 400 kV system that is interconnecting this Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. So it is successfully operating since a long time. See, when we look into the technicalities of it, I told you that we must see the load generation balance. So we analyze the load generation of these, not 3 regions, 5 regions. See, there is a possibility that if we interconnect Southeast Asian region with the South Asian region and GCC, then it can be extended up to the European Union and African grid. So we have a strong interconnection. I will show you this slide. You can see that with interconnection, this few interconnection, like if we interconnect India with the Myanmar and Myanmar with the Thailand, then South Asian grid is interconnected with the Southeast Asian grid. On the western side, if we connect India with the Oman, then Oman is totally interconnected. GCC grid is interconnected, and there is this Medina Tabuk Badr link is already under implementation. If we interconnect these 3 links, when we reach to the African grids, then from Egypt, Cyprus, and this Iran, Cyprus, and GRIDS link is under construction. If we connect all these things, then from Africa to Europe we can reach. Within Africa, Egypt is interconnected with the Morocco. Morocco is again interconnected with the Spain. So this we can cover whole Southeast Asian region to the whole European Union. So there is a possibility with the few links, with the implementation of few links, we can interconnect with entire Southeast Asia with the European Union, till the European Union. There are multiple 5 power pools in Africa, and these power pools are not strongly interconnected, but there is a plan to interconnect different 5 power pools of Africa. If these 5 power pools are interconnected, so then virtually we can have one nation, one grid, one world, one grid kind of thing. So, but there are issues. I have highlighted few of the issues. These issues, but fortunately we have many links available across the world, and these technologies are available. With those technologies, these links can be fulfilled. So the India-Sri Lanka link also, it is talked about earlier. We were thinking of going to the undersea cable. Now, with detailed survey and all those things, we have optimized it. Now we are planning to have overhead cables, overhead link between India and Sri Lanka, and this has reduced the cost significantly. We are in the talk for interconnecting India and Maldives. We will see the technology. What technology would be required, will be deployed. So these are some of the benefits. I will not go into the details of the benefit. We know the benefits of the interconnection, and we will hear from our panelists about the benefits of the interconnections. I am not going into the details of that. So in order to fulfill this dream of cross-border interconnection, some points I have highlighted, and the first and foremost point is the intergovernmental cooperation. If we decide on the intergovernmental cooperation, then government decide that the link is required, then it can be implemented. Then the next thing is the technical studies and regional grid interconnection studies. As sir has told that we need to go into the technicalities. We know that now we have to build the link, then we go into the technicalities, and then regional and legal framework, and then commercial mechanism, and then of course operational mechanism, how to operate. See, we are successfully operating cross-border interconnection with our neighboring countries, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal. Unfortunately, we don't have any common grid code. Even then, we are operating it with some common understanding. So it is not necessary that we need to harmonize the grid codes and operations. Then only we will be able to operate. There are ways, and we have been successfully operating it. But yes, for larger interconnection, for larger cooperation, we need to mature these grid codes and harmonize the practices also. So. And the capacity building is the most important thing. If you want to go from a small grid to very large grid, very large grids, then capacity building of the people involved in this system is required. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh. Sorry for rushing you through the presentation, but yeah, because of the time constraint, we have to do that. Only one point I would like to, you may just indicate, because AC links, as far as the Southeast Asia is concerned, connections could be through the AC lines also, as you have stated, it has to be studied and all that. But GCCI, ultimately, it could be undersea and long distances.
So with the GCCI also, we can have AC link, like we can see if we can go from India to Pakistan, and Pakistan we can extend to AC links. In case of Southeast Asia, initially, see, we have different practices with the Myanmar. So initially we have planned HVDC back-to-back, but in the future that back-to-back can be strengthened further with the AC link. So initial phase we will have DC links, and then when practices mature and our practices mature, then we can go for the AC links.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajesh. We go to Mr. Durganand Bariyat. He is Senior Director, Transmission Director, Nepal Electricity Authority. So, Mr. Bariyat, that zero crossing, kindly remember that. And so, basically, what I would request you is, what are your thoughts or views about this interconnection, South Asia to Southeast Asia and GCCIA, and what specific benefits you see for Nepal with these type of connections? So, these are the 2 points. Like, if you try to keep yourself around these points, that would be slightly better, because already he is passing on the slips. Yeah, you can.
Thank you, sir. I will try to finish within the time given by you. Okay. So, since I can see audience from different part of the world, so let me start with where Nepal is geographically located at. Okay. Many people don't know. So, Nepal around 83,000 megawatt. So right now, our installed capacity is only 2,480 megawatt. So that means we have tapped less than 3% what we have. Okay, and our demand is right now. It occurred in February. It was 1,840 megawatt only. Right. So why I'm telling you this is the installed capacity we have right now. It is enough to meet our own demand in the wet seasons from June to June, July, August, September, October, November, right? 6 months. But from December up to May. Since the river discharge decreases to 1/3, so still we have to import from India. Okay, and but we have many generating plants that are under construction. So in 2025 and 26, we expect that our installed capacity will reach to 6,400 megawatt, and in 2026 and 27, it will increase to 7,000 megawatt. So we are increasing by roughly 1,000 megawatt every year. Okay, so but right now the cross-border transmission lines we have, there are 132 kV lines and 400 kV lines. There is only one 400 kV line right now, that is Alkevar Muzaffarpur 400 kV line, and rest are 132 kV lines, Kusaya Kataya, Raksol Parwanipur, Tanakpur, Mannagar, Gandak Ramnagar. There are 4 links at 132 kV. Okay, and the total capacity of these cross-border lines which we have at present are around 1100 megawatt only. So in 2026 and 27, when our installed capacity will be 7,000 megawatt, and when our demand is around 2,800 megawatt, so we expect that we can export 4,000 megawatt to India. Okay, so for that we have identified and we are in the process of constructing new 400 kV lines as well as 132 kV lines. So next 400 kV line that will be commissioned very soon, I think within this year, is Sitamarhi-Dalkevar line, and we have agreed with India that Gorakhpur New Butwal line will be commissioned by 2025 and 26. That will be built by joint venture of India and Power Grid Corporation of India. Then we have further agreed to construct 2 more 400 kV lines. That is Inerva Purnia and Lamki Bareilly. Lamki Dododara in Nepal and Bareilly in India. So Inerva Purnia we are expecting by 2026-27, and Lamki Bareilly by 2027-28. So these are and also we are constructing 132 kV lines, Kusaya Kataya, Painia Sampatia, Parwani Raksol. So these lines will be completed in this year itself, in 2023. So that will again help us to export more power or import more power in the dry period. Now this is the and we have also bilateral agreement with Bangladesh. We have signed an MOU, but since the line has to pass through India, still it needs some kind of trilateral agreement that has not been signed so far. We expect that this trilateral agreement will be there in very soon. So we have bilateral. We are participating in India through power exchange, through short-term bilateral contracts, and from 2021 onward, we are also participating in Indian energy exchange market through DAED market system. So right now, through this IEX, we have been allowed to import 600 megawatt from DM line. And we can export 462 megawatt from different hydropower plants, total 11 hydropower plants. So this is the scenario what we have right now. With more generations that will be coming in future, so definitely we have to build some more lines between India and Nepal. Okay, and now we are talking beyond this bilateral or trilateral. We are talking about the regional, and this time we are talking about connecting with GCC, Great South Asia, ASEAN, BIMSTEC. So that is the very large grid network. So for that, definitely, since these regions have diversity in peak, diversity in the time zone, we have diverse energy resources, there are seasonal complementaries in the region. So definitely this will be helpful. It's a great opportunity if we can connect this region. There will be some technical challenges, but technical challenges I think can always be solved. There is always a solution for the technical problem. I can't say the same thing about the political problem, but a technical problem, it will incur cost. But there is always a solution for technical problem. Okay? So for that, the harmonization of grid code, common minimum grid code, etc., will be required. So we have not, because we are now practicing only in bilateral and we have to go in trilateral, so we do not have the experience of regional markets. But if that happens, then we will also participate in such kind of market. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pariyato. Thank you for the happy note, and every year you are adding around 1,000 megawatts. So naturally, by the time when these links, interregional links come, so definitely by that time you will have further surpluses and all that. So you can gradually. Another point, what I can tell you is your trilateral, multilateral, all those issues would automatically get solved the moment we try to talk that we are just talking with the other leaders. Thank you very much. I am seeing Mr. Suni in the hall. Suni sir, if you can come in the front, then level of discussions can be bit more.
At your disposal, sir.
Okay. We have now we'll go to Mr. Soman Kobe. Yeah. So it is basically same for Mr. Kobe for you. So your specific views about this thing and what benefits you specifically see for Bhutan.
Thank you. I think I will not talk so much on the connections. I mean, like in the ASEAN and thing, but I'll try to basically talk. At the moment we are connected to India, I think our grid is connected to India. I think we are connected to the rest of the world through the Indian grid system. For Bhutan, I mean, like we were connected to the Indian system at the 11 kV voltage level when the Jaldaka project in West Bengal was commissioned sometime in late 60s. So by then we were connected at the 11 kV voltage level because power has to flow through the Jaldaka project in West Bengal in the form of royalty to the government. Since then, the Bhutan grid has been connected to at the 220 kV level in 1998 with the commissioning of 360 megawatt Chuba hydropower project that is almost around 35 years ago. Then we had 132 kV commissioning of 60 megawatt of Puri Chuhada project. By then we were connected with to the Indian grid at 132 volts level in the east through Assam. Consequent to that, so there have been so many other hydropowers which were commissioned, notably the the Tala 1020. So by then we were connected to the Indian grid in 2007 at the 400 kV level. Lately, with the commissioning of Mangdi 2, 760, further addition has been there. And today, we have multiple connections with the Indian grid through various corridors to Siliguri and Alipurduar in the West Bengal and in Salakati and Rangia in the east. So with a total transmission installed capacity of around 8,000 megawatt today. So as far as our generation is concerned, so today our total generation is around 2,300. So we have huge transmission access capacity for transmitting additional electricity, so which electricity power, so which is under construction. So we have around 3,042 megawatts under construction under various stages. Once completed, so I think we will. Our transmission system, which is designed N-1, has the capacity to transfer electricity to India. Since for the larger part of the year, since we have been exporting India, we have been exporting surplus energy to India, but lately with the increase in our demand, so since 2022, so we had to import energy from the Indian Power Exchange, and again in 2023, since January, so we are importing power from the Indian Exchange to the tune of around 4 to 5 million MU in a day. I think this should continue because all our generations are hydro, run of the river, and during this time of the year when the river is low, so our generation is less, and we have to supplement our power demand from importing from Indian Exchange. I mean, that must be one of the main benefits for us to go into regional market. The bilateral, of course, today it is a bilateral trading with India. Our experience is that to have a proper power exchange with Indian system, so there has to be a proper system coordination between the two logistics center, which is mostly we do with ERDC and Calcutta on a monthly basis at a technical level, and with this is basically done to harmonize the law, to harmonize the grid, have a grid discipline, and to sort out any technical issues within the system, because each part of us has to correct and maintain the grid so that the power flow is not disrupted. So there's the high level of interaction within the Lord Space Center. So far as a bilateral trade of electricity is concerned, I think it is okay. But now, suddenly now when we are into the Indian exchange market rate, then there are so many different aspects of the trading. What our chairman said is the DMS and its associated commercial aspects of this DMS. So these are quite challenging and quite critical and quite important to learn in the early phase of the power import, because I remember that when we imported the power for the first time in 2022, the very first month our DSM bill was very huge. But with experience, with technical support, especially from SAARC and other knowledgeable partners within the system, so we had to train, we had to upgrade our skills and things. And so as we matured importing down the system, so we were able to, that we were zero line. Of course, we are not able to come to zero line, but somewhere near we are able to reach. And I think Bhutan has, I think, really learned a lot and benefited from this entering into the importing from the power exchange, of course. I feel that the electricity trade at the global level or at a regional or multi-regional level is a larger portion of what we do bilaterally, and what we import today. It's done at a larger scale, and it is done at a much at a bigger market and in a bigger system in the market. So that is what is our our opinion. Of course, now trans-regional grid connectivity is always difficult because the technical component, the commercial component has been all been studied by various researchers, and I think and the benefits has been shared by everybody. So I really don't think that we have to reinvent and have to re-stress on these benefits. But the only thing is that for this to take forward, there are so many initiatives. The one son, the concept, and there are so many integrations that which many multinational, many organizations like SAARC, BIMSTEC, even agencies like JICA have done a multiple study on this regional grid, then beyond regional grid. So I think it should fusion at the end of the day. And as somebody said, that it's time for us to lay the wire on the ground today. So I think this is some of the few things I would like to say, and this is our experience, and the benefit is that when we are low in our generation, we have an opportunity to import from the grid. But when larger grids are, I think, connected, there I think we have more opportunities to buy at a cost that is, affordable, or that is, whatever you want to say, reasonable, that could be purchased in the near future. So we, as I said, that for us, we are connected to Indian grid synchronously, and 9 or 8 entries, and the capacity is 7,500. And I think we look forward that this type of connection goes beyond our borders and beyond our region, so that we have the benefit of competitive pricing and the economies of scale in when we purchased energy from the future energy markets that will come. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tobje. So basically, I see you also indicate that the choices and opportunities would increase for the Bhutan, and by that time you would be through with all these mechanisms.
Yes, we should be able to sell, we should be able to buy.
Yeah.
As a knowledgeable buyer and a knowledgeable seller.
We'll go to Mr. Abdul Rashid Khan. Thank you, Mr. Tobje. We'll go to Mr. Abdul Rashid Khan, Project Director from PGCB, Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Actually, our previous speaker have already say about the grid, GCC grid, ASEAN grid and Southwest grid, have the statistics of these grids, and along with the opportunities of renewable energy as well as the challenges.
So
Everything
Mr.
is already.
Khan, another point, basically, because you are connected with the Myanmar, physically landlocked, some area, Bangladesh. So what type of, because already there is some discussions of connection of More and Tamu and all that, those type of links. But what are your, because Myanmar is neighboring to the Bangladesh, whether those type of opportunities, because you are well aware, whether any such opportunities are there, and your overall view about this thing. I think if you restricted those.
Okay, thank you. Actually, whatever you're telling about the Myanmar connection, actually, I think 5 or 6 years back, it was discussed, but later on it was actually stopped. That is why, because it is in the hilly and forest part of our country, it is very much critical. That is why it is later on it is stopped. So no more discussion. But however, there are some discussion maybe ongoing in the BIMSTEC forum. And whatever actually everything was told by our other panelists about the Bangladesh, I think Rajesh Kumar he knows about our system very well, because for the future planning of Bangladesh system, transmission system, we engaged a consultant. Fortunately, it is awarded to PGCI for the 2025, 2030 and 2041. And they have also studied our system as well as give the recommendation accordingly. And Bangladesh has generation capacity at this moment is 23,000 gigawatt, but derated its capacity is around 22,000. But our so far maximum demand we got 15,000 megawatt. So, but our most of the generation is gas based, natural gas based around 49%, and imported oil around 32%. And coal is already imported coal, it is 11%. And at this moment we are importing 5% power from India. And we have very little opportunity of hydro as well as solar. That is why actually we are very much needed about the importing renewable energy from the neighboring countries. And our other panelists have already informed about the SBDC block at Bharamara, from which we are taking 1,000 megawatt, but we have the opportunity to take another 2,000 megawatt power through that link, because we have 400 kV line. So I think we hope that in future we may take more power by bilateral discussion. Similarly, in the Tripura to Kumilla, that is synchronous connection, we are getting 160 megawatt from India. But I think one thing was not discussed, we have already going to start import power from Adani. It is a private generation, That power generation around 1,600 megawatt, which is dedicated only for Bangladesh. And in the next 10th January, it will be synchronized to our system. And first unit, that is around 750 megawatt, will come to Bangladesh from 10th January, expected date. And total 1,600 or maybe 1,500 megawatt will come by the next June. So as per our planning, 5 or 10 years back, in 2025, we shall import 3,000 megawatt from neighboring countries, 25,000 from India and 500 from Nepal. So we have already achieved 2,700 megawatt from India. That is crossing the amount. And GMR, that is from the Nepal, it is, our previous panel already informed, we are getting, because we are most in interest for the Bhutan and Nepal, because they are a huge hydro potential, the power is cheap, and energy power will be cheap, so we must try to go there. In that case, trilateral agreement should be required, because without India, we cannot go to Nepal or Bhutan. Similarly, whatever he says that the GCC and BIMSTEC, ASEAN grid, actually we have no chance to go with them. But however, when India or Bhutan or Nepal is connected that grid, automatically we have also benefited over this grid. Maybe not directly, but indirectly we shall benefit it when these three grids will be interconnected to each other. So we are hoping that in future we will be, and always we shall work together, because every forum we always attend our engineers and Bangladesh representative and always try to give feedback and how to help to each other. We always try our best to help each other. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rashid, for restricting to 3 or 4 minutes only. And basically, so the round of the discussions by the panelists is over. And what we could see is, we could see the benefits, they are very clear. And if we look at the drivers, it is we want to harness the solar energy. There is a time difference of 5 to 5.5 hours, which we want to utilize. Automatic grid balancing is there during that period. And another big driver is, we want to have the clean and green energy. And it can be there only if we go for this type of arrangement. And if I look at the enablers, already all the 3 regions, they have a very well connected network. Already the power is being transferred among the different countries within those regions. And if we are able to connect these 3 regions like South Asia with the GCCI and GCCIA, subsequently the arrangements are already there. So that way, these are definitely, we see as these are the enablers. Drivers are there, enablers are there, and it's a win-win situation greatly. Rather, at some point of time, it would appear that it is a must. We must do this particular thing. So basically, we are coming to an end. We are well within our original schedule time, Pramod. What we will do is a few questions, only 2-3 questions. Definitely, we will like the participants to say a few, like they can ask, they can point out which particular speaker they may like to ask. But even before that, slightly I'll use my privilege. Soni Saab, even before I make the house open, people have talked a lot of benefits and all that, and everyone knows benefits are there. And with your hands, like you have seen the regions within India getting connected, and it's a big region. 500 gigawatt region is already there, country is there, and we have connected to the South Asia also. So when we are working for this particular aspect from the Indian Solar Alliance, Mr. Khurana is there, Rajesh, power grid operators are there, our operators. So what are the challenges, like you would like to point out that these things, because things are in the process, so these things have to be looked into more seriously. So these are the real challenges which the planners, which the whoever have been executing, they must look into these parts very seriously.
Thank you, Agarwal sir. This was a surprise, but operators are always ready for surprise. So I will only tell two stories, 1 minute each. First story, 1972. A 12-year young boy asked Big Minister Fuller, give me a solution for eradicating all international problems without violence. And all of you who know Big Minister Fuller, who are a philosopher engineer, please type jenny.org, Global Energy Network Initiative, jenny.org. The Big Minister Fuller's answer was, connect the world as one grid. That is the number one solution. And then he said that all the economic currency will no longer be dollar or even gold. It will be KWA. So that's our first story is over. Please type jenny.org and read at least 10 papers, which are favorite of mine, but you will find them. Second story. 1980 or 81, I am not able to still recollect, I have been more. 1980, there was a seminar in Goa. And we were there. Lots of topic, and you can understand in 1980 how young I was. So no, after listening to everybody, we wrote down that that time there was no PPT, no such thing. So we wrote down in a slide, 2-3 of young people, that all India should become one grid. By the way, at that time, all India was 40 grids, 40 frequencies at all India level. And state was not simple. So we very much pleaded with the chairman, sir, please give us 1 minute time. So we were asked to present. We said that all India grid should become one. You know how we were ridiculed. Hey, bachcha log, understand, how much money is required. Is it possible? Can you draw lines like this? Can you operate all India grid? Go and read. It's not possible. And I had read Big Minister Fuller's paper. Just 40 years. Now all India grid is one. It's a reality. It is doable. It has to be done. It's a matter of time. Thank you very much.
Good. So you are also very, very optimistic, Soni Saab, about this thing, that this would definitely come. Okay, great. Few questions. Any hands are raised? Any questions? Yes.
Just felt...
you can introduce, sir, yourself. And
thank you. Sorry, I am Nima Singh from Regulatory Authority in Bhutan. My question goes to Mr. Khurana on ISA. Just a little bit out of curiosity, the energy security study that you will be carrying out, what would be actually in essence? Of course, you have mentioned, but in real essence, for a minute or so, will you be able to elaborate what it will be in essence be considered? Is it only about the solar generation or all other matrices and aspects will be carried out?
Yeah, in the OSO work, just to answer in very brief, the OSO work study will definitely be including all the renewables, solar, wind and hydro. And in fact, based on the generation of the countries which are involved, all the parameters have been considered as well as the loads also. So hourly pattern have been considered so that there will be no basically correlation. Basically, it will be exact correlation between the demand and supply scenario. So different scenarios have also has to be considered as per the basically IEEE as well as SIGRE, basically SIGRE recommendations. So all those have already been defined and it will all be taken care. So have to have a resilience, robust system which will be connected transcontinental. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nima. Any one or two more questions? Anyone else? Yes. Yeah. We'll take, after this, we'll take only one more if question is there. That's all.
Yeah. Hi, this is Dr. Shivani. I'm from Power Consulting in Energy. My question is towards Rajesh Kumar ji, that while we are talking of such large interconnections, regional grids and so on, what would be your perspective of the live experience on the kind of energy security that we see, or certain kind of disturbances or variances which could pose a threat to blackouts or any such sudden disruptions?
Difficult question to answer, but experience of Indian grid interconnection as well as interconnection of the South Asian grid with the Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh, you can see over a period of, say, sir has told us over 40 years, the energy security of each and every country and region has increased. And we have seen in the European Union as well as in other in USA as well as, with the interconnection, energy security has always increased, never decreased. And if we talk about the disturbances, there are technical solutions to it, and we are adapting to the solution. It's only required that we must adhere to the technical solutions and technical guidelines. So energy security is not a problem at all in my view. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rajesh. So, okay, so if any one more question is there, we can take. Otherwise, yeah, this is the last question. Very quick and.
Thank you. My name is Edi Widiono. I'm from Indonesia.
Yeah.
I have a question because my background, I was almost half of my life years, I served under PLN, the state electricity company, and we enjoy some kind of freedom at that time to initiate Asian power grid. I just wonder whether any other countries has experience where the state or the utility initiate cross-border interconnection, and whether it is, what's the problem with it? Because in our country, when public utility initiate that one, we have to overcome the political layer in the government, and sometimes technical proposal may not be accepted by that level. Thank you very much.
Your question is?
My question is if there is any experience in the past where utility initiate cross-border interconnection prior to the government initiative.
Anyone would like to take this? Or?
Sir, just from my experience and whatever I understood, the development of cross-border interconnection in India, it always started at the government level. It always started at the government level, and utility level, initiating utility level, I have not seen, and sir can elaborate on that, seniors. And in globally also, the first and foremost thing, all the interconnection in the Europe also initially interconnected at the government level. Then we have merchant power, merchant links, and also level. The first and foremost thing is the inter-government level decision. Thank you.
So as he stated, like it started with the intergovernmental, but in India now it's all unbundling. Private players are there. There are utilities who can sell, who can buy. They have been transiting with Bangladesh. They have been the private generators. They have been transiting with the Nepal. So those type of arrangements are there. But initially it was with the government. Okay.
Just for information, the ASEAN Power Grid was initiated by heads of Asian Public Utility Association.
Okay.
So this is a head of utilities rather than a government side.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, okay. So we'll conclude this, and I am again sorry for rushing through to the speakers, but we wanted to maintain the time, and Pramod is still within the original time. We are still 5 minutes earlier. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agarwal sir, for moderating the session, and thank you everyone for sharing your valuable contributions and insightful thoughts. Now I would request Mr. Agarwal to hand over the token of appreciation to our panelists. Starting with Rajesh Kumar. Mr. Durgananda. Mr. Sonam Tobje. Mr. Abdul Rashid Khan. Mr. Pankaj Kurana. Mr. Raju Ratnapanda. Now I would request Mr. Raju Ratnapanda to hand over the token of appreciation to our moderator. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Shweta Ravikumar, Head of FSR Global and Florence School of Regulations. Now I would request Mr. S.S. Barpanda. He is a Director, Market Operations at Grid Controller of India. Now I would like to invite Mr. Nima Shering, Interim CEO at Bhutan Electricity Authority. May I invite Dilli Bahadur Shah Singh. He is a Energy Regulatory Commission, Nepal. Electricity Regulatory Commission. Now I would request Mr. Kapil Dev, MD, New Age Markets in Electricity, India. Now I would request Mr. Edi. He is a former President, PTPLN, Indonesia. Welcome you, sir. Now I am handing over the session to Mr. Ravi Sitapati to take forward the session. Thank you, sir.
No worries. Let me sit down first a minute. So we need one chair. Okay, while we get a chair there for Eddie, I think they made a mistake. Anyway, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention. I think hello? Please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are at the last session of the last day before a banquet. And we are running, at least for my time clock, we are running 35-40 minutes behind time. So I have been told to land this plane exactly by 5:30 so that the banquet arrangements can start. And so I have already made a request to at least our speaker if she can cut her speech down. And I will also ask each of the discussants to keep it to just 2 or 3 points that they think is worthy highlighting either for or against what Shweta is going to talk about. It's all about power markets. I know in the earlier session we went a little bit into the power market opportunities, etc. But I think most of it was technical. I mean, that's where I come from, the technical side. But it'll be interesting to see the commercial and the power market opportunity side as to what Shweta has to say. The neighboring countries may already have a certain interaction with India on the Indian exchange. But the other parts of the network that we talked about, the GCCI and others, may or may not. And so it'll be interesting to see what Shweta has to say. So without further ado, Shweta, it's yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Ravi. I'll definitely keep it brief. My challenge today is to keep the audience captive on a Friday afternoon and also to try and summarize 3 hours of yesterday's session in 5 minutes. I'll try to do justice. I will be touching about regional markets surely, but not going into much details on the power market products. I think Mr. Kapil Dev here will touch upon that in his briefing. So we'll try and look at some of the macro issues. The previous panel focused on some of the nitty-gritties, but let's step back a bit and go back to our basic questions and see how we sort of realize this regional markets and regional interconnections, not just within the South Asian region, but also beyond. So going back to the basics, because we're from the school of regulation, so we'll love to go back to the academic concepts. There are many possible ways of how regional markets can be integrated, but for simplicity and ease, I'm just going to place 3, but I see our slides are not being shown on our screen. Technical issue. Bala? Perfect. I hope everyone can see the screens. Perfect. So yeah, going back. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and seeing what are the possible ways in which regional markets can be organized. For simplicity and ease today, we have tried to categorize that into 3 key models. The first one is country A sort of extends its jurisdiction into country B or C. That means we take forward what rules of the game are already there, but to a larger canvas. The case in point here example is what we see between some of the European member states. The second is, of course, trying to establish a regional market. That means replacing all the existing country markets with one regional market, and that's what you see in the case of the European Union or the internal electricity market as we call it in Europe. The third option is, of course, not superimposing a regional market on top of what individual countries have, which is what we see in Central America in the CPEC market. All of these options have its own pros and cons. It again depends on how easily the governance frameworks can be established in different parts of the world, and which of these would help us sort of harmonize ourselves both at the technical and at the intergovernmental levels. But not going into much of those details, I'll try and focus more on a bit of the EU experience. Something that we did learn yesterday and was emphasized was the importance of planning. We're talking about these grand, ambitious plans, but without a good planning perspective, we will not be able to realize that. So I'm going to talk about how the EU does its planning. They have something called as the 10-year network development plan, which happens every 2 years. They do it both for the electricity and the gas networks. It is done in coordination with the NSOE, which is the network of system operators who develop this plan with inputs and oversight by the EU regulator ASER. And of course, here all the member states feed into the NSOE's planning exercise. And a subset of the 10-year network development plan is a very important thing called projects of common interest, which would be very relevant to what we're talking here today. And what does this project of common interest mean? It means they are priority projects of setting up interconnection between different countries in the European Union. And the planning aspect is one subset of the 10-year network development plan. So how exactly does this projects of common interest work? It's governed by the 10-year regulation at the European Union level. So it has 3 different components to it. First is to set up these priority projects. They have 3 thematic lines and 11 priority categories via which these PCIs are decided. But not just that, when we have more than one country deciding, there needs to be an equitable way in how these projects are decided, and therefore they have a methodology which is called the cross-border cost allocation, which decides how the project costs are evenly distributed amongst the different countries participating, looking at both the societal and the economic benefits for the countries there. And also an important component of the TENI regulation is also a Connected Europe facility, which is a fund which could be accessed to set up these projects of common interest. So you see, it's sort of a wholesome deal. There are more elements of the TENI regulation that we have not mentioned here, but for today's discussion, what's important to take away is there is a methodology on how we can equitably decide for different countries to collaborate. There's a common funding pool which countries can tap into and sort of help set up these projects of common interest that benefits us all. An important observation in the EU case is that sometimes in the upfront you might not find the benefits to be positive, but in the long run they all add up. So such a methodology would help us understand why certain projects might be more valuable over the long run. So a methodology something like this for the SAARC region and also between the different regions would be very interesting. A quick sum up of the key observations from yesterday's session. We had a lot of us from here already a part of that. Something that did come out very clearly was there is no doubt that we share a shared vision. There is also an intent to build shared projects. It's only a question of how. So we bring back the question of the governance model that would be used to execute this. Do we use existing frameworks such as the BIMSTEC, SAARC, and SAFIR? It's so far so good. Or going forward, do we set up regional institutional bodies, something that also USAID reiterated a lot in their presentations? Do we have one umbrella body, or do we have for different stakeholders, platforms connecting similar stakeholders in the region that we are focused on? Then came the question of shared vision, shared projects. Great. When do we actually start doing this? So far, it's been great that we're able to do it at a bilateral level. That's still okay. While the markets mature, we can develop the framework for regional institutional platforms to come in. And when the time is right, I think it will automatically transcend into that. The third key aspect that did come out was commercialization is key. Everybody is in the process of or getting into business to do business, but it needs to be an equitable way of doing it, and therefore methodologies like CBA will help us understand how this is done, not only look at it from an economical perspective, but also from a social good. And a key point of that was we need the transmission corridors first. The market will definitely follow. If we don't have the lines, no matter what we would love to trade will not be traded. So we'll have to sort of see how to de-link the transmission infrastructure development from the trade that we do, and not just have project-specific corridors being built. Then, of course, all of us are passionate about this topic, so we feel the urgency to do it. But we also need to convince policymakers that this is important, and for that, I think we need to show the economic good of doing such projects. So we need to focus also on economic development for a more G2G willingness to come in. So we need to paint a picture of going beyond electricity so that we can all sort of meet our collective decarbonization goals as a region and the world at large. So these were some of the quick takeaways. And some open questions for the floor here. We struggled yesterday for 3 hours trying to come to consensus on just the South Asian region. And here we're talking about supranational regions of different regions actually coordinating. How will this even happen? Would the institutional framework be an extension of existing institutions, or will there be another body that should be set up on top of the regional bodies that exist? Then, of course, second, harmonization sounds good in theory. We struggle even between 4 people on the same table to harmonize. How are we going to get a bunch of countries to harmonize? How is it really feasible? And if yes, what would be some of the ways in going about this? And of course, like one of the audience person did bring out, it's very important that political intervention is very important if we need to unlock this. So how do we sort of bring that sort of uptake on topics such as this? Otherwise, it would be many more sessions of discussions happening in good forums like here. But if it has to realize, it really needs to be taken top down and as well as bottom up. So with that, I end my presentation and hand the floor over to you, sir.
So Shweta, I have a question for you. If you had the authority, yes, what would be step 1, 2, 3 you think you would take by
the presentation that you just made to make it happen?
I'll just share from yesterday's experience. Just get people to sit in a more casual setting and people start to talk. So I think sometimes the best way is to break bread over these discussions and not always go through formal engagements, because I think everybody agrees, they have similar ideas, the intent is there. Not just go through the political corridors as much as that's needed, but also get the parallel forces to work. And I think that worked, at least for us yesterday in our session. Yeah.
Second question is, uneven cost sharing, how do you make it equitable? What would be, in your view, at least one criteria that gets the conversation going itself? When you have countries of different sizes, different capabilities, different resources, what would be that first layer that brings everybody at ease, so you think?
I'm no expert on that topic, but I will just answer based on what my school does. One is if we have a fair methodology in place, and I think that should give people the trust to even come to the table to negotiate on setting up projects of common interest. And I think that should be one of the key focuses. So have an instrument or a tool that people can trust, and then I think the next steps will follow.
Thank you. So what we now have is we have several discussants who represent their own constitutions or their areas, different backgrounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Mr. Kapil Dev. If you can, either you add to it or if you disagree with it, or it doesn't matter. But what are your views on this area and subject as opportunities, threats, strengths and weaknesses? Yeah, please.
As Shweta said, hi, good afternoon. I'm Kapil and I represent New Age Markets in Electricity, which is India's first OTC platform. So that's a very, very recent development which happened only in the new power market regulations which were promulgated in August 2021. We got our permission in September 2022. So Ravi, we had spent, and Shweta said that it was difficult for us to come at conclusion for 3 hours. I think what I'll do is I'll very quickly tell briefly about the market microstructures, because those are very, very important. While we keep on talking about integration, market structures, it's important to very quickly understand what are the market microstructures which also need to be kept in mind while we are designing the markets. While we keep on saying markets, but what do markets constitute? So taking from the way we have evolved in India, we started with bilateral trades in 1998 when our ERC Act came into being. So bilateral trades, so it's between 1 and 2 people, and then you get to know where are the surpluses, where are the deficits. We had traders into being, and then came Electricity Act 2003, which identified or at least recognized trading as a distinct activity, and therefore it started from there. 2008 we launched power exchanges. So for 10 years the bilateral trading was happening, whether it was government to government, whether it was state to state. In terms of cross-border, we had those government-to-government contracts, which are essentially bilateral contracts. So once you have bilateral contracts or OTC trading happening, then you can build upon a structure of an exchange. Similarly, in 2022, when we are ready to launch the OTC platform, and we look forward towards launching financial markets in electricity, I think OTC forwards are very, very important. So essentially, 2 market segments. One is exchange-driven market, and both of them are organized marketplaces. One is exchange-driven market, the other one is OTC market. Now, what is the distinction between exchange-driven market and OTC market? Exchange does all standard products. The processes are standard. In case of OTC, the processes are standard, the requirements are customized. Price discovery in case of exchange-driven market, it's collective, it's uniform. That means you want to have the collective wisdom of the market participants. In case of OTC, it is specific to your requirement, whether it's an auction, whether it's an RFQ, whatever. Similarly, on liquidity, it's standard for everyone. You cannot change anything, it's already there. You go, put in your requirements, and you get your requirement. But in case of OTC, the liquidity is built to your requirement. So I want this, can a liquidity be created for this? So those are the fundamental differences between an exchange-driven market and an OTC market. Similarly, the effect of these 2 markets, in case of exchange-driven markets, worldwide electricity markets, price is an after effect of transaction. Because it's collective wisdom, everything would come into being, the processing would happen, the matching, clearing, everything would be done by an exchange and the prices would be discovered. Whereas in case of OTC, price is the decision to transact. So whether you want to transact or not depends upon the price. Liquidity I already said. The other aspect which is there in OTC market is your ability to define requirements to suit your particular outcome. Say for example, credit rating. Now exchange, the risk management has to be standard. The reason it has to be standard because you want the price discovery to be better. In case of OTC market, you have the ability to define your requirements. So those are the two market structures which exist. Both of them complement and supplement each other. Both of them have a different role to play. So whenever we are discussing about markets, I think other than exchanges, we also need to appreciate that an organized OTC platform, also an OTC market needs to be there on which the market structure can be built. So those were the thoughts on the market microstructures, I think.
So I have one follow-up on that. In the neighboring countries, in the previous panel, we discussed that they all signed on to the IEX, more or less.
So that's an exchange-driven
market, right. In your view, now that you will extend this, let's say, conceptually to the GCCI and to the ASEAN countries, what do you see as the market mechanism, or do you see maybe this existing IEX being that new market?
So IEX, PXIL and HPX, these are the three exchanges we have got in the country.
Right.
But so before Nepal, for example, before Nepal could trade on day-ahead spot, which is the collective segment of the market, which is always driven on an exchange, there were bilateral trades happening between India and Nepal.
Right. So if you extend that, what would be your views for countries in the GCCI network and in the ASEAN network?
So they should look at market which is OTC and exchange.
Okay.
Only one segment of the market would serve limited purpose. And one fundamental difference which we have started to see in India as well is exchanges are generally energy only market.
Right, correct.
So does energy only market suffice? The question is yes.
Perhaps, in this link, perhaps, right?
But the answer is no.
I agree. The question is, where would you start, right? It's a difficult subject.
So therefore, you have to start, whether you start with OTC or with exchange, eventually you should have both.
Okay.
Conventionally, the trade happens, bilaterally first.
Okay.
So we need to have those OTC trades happening and which need to transfer on an OTC platform, which is like screen-based trading and an informed decision making.
Okay.
That has to happen.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi.
So, Mr. Charing, you are next with your views and comments.
Thank you. Let me just get straight to the point from the benefit that we could probably derive as an envisioning exercise. So the power market within the region and inter-regional, I think Bhutan, in terms of the capacity that we are looking at, it is around 300 megawatt solar as of now from next 5 years to 10 years. And we have also the leftover hydropower installations of around 5,000 to 10,000 megawatt to be harnessed. And then this coming of this inter-regional interconnections and power market interactions for that matter will definitely provide us an urgency to develop to this generation potentials. And as we see on in terms of the market, where we, as Mr. Kavi was mentioning, we existed initially at the long-term bilateral contract power market, and then slowly now, especially Bhutan and Nepal now started embarking into your exchange market. Now, as I was repeatedly making comments several times over the last 1 year, the long-term in order to start, the long-term bilateral contract could exist for a certain extent, but then the advanced power market should be now evolved and extended, and then where most of the neighboring countries in the South Asia could initially start at a larger increasing scale, and then this will also will try to stimulate on its own for some time to a certain extent the interconnectivities. Now, when we say, and then this one sun, one world, one grid should be able to provide us as we extend to the East GCC and then to the ASEAN. There are, I think we are not the same format of the market that we are living, and especially when, if I understood correctly from the Indian context, market context, I mean DSM context, when you're trying to go for that, from frequency based to your ancillary based, and when we try to extend towards a little bit there, I think the developed countries are now having a balanced market balancing operator vis-a-vis with the system operator, and then basically we are trying to balance, the essence is the same. Now how we call it is the name. Now therefore, when we try to intermix these 2-3 power markets also, it will create a lot of dynamisms and opportunities for countries like Bhutan, and also on behalf of, maybe I can also speak on behalf of the Nepal, to accelerate those sale and purchase and harnessing of our potentials in that. And as I said, this is only for the wholesale power market at the cross-border level, and it will also try to stimulate in the downstream in the context of Bhutan in next few years, to establish the distribution electricity retail market systems where we are also thinking in a smaller way. So this is what I try to perceive and then to vision out with this kind of inter-regional and within the regional connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Mr. Bhargav Singh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those who understand Sanskrit, there is a saying that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. All your neighbors are your relatives. I want to link this thing with also principle. One sun, one world, one grid. The Mother Nature has given us quite a lot of things. It has not given one particular country or one particular region all the things. Like for Nepal and Bhutan, they have given us a lot of water resources. For India, maybe oil, gas, solar, and coal. So also Bangladesh and all other places. So if we collectively utilize this, we all will be benefited. So having interconnection, bilateral, trilateral, quadrilateral, multilateral, quadrilateral, I'm saying that India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. Let there be one grid also, interconnection also. So all these interconnections has to be there to form a South Asian grid at the initial stage. Then we may connect to ASEAN grid and then to GCC. So from east to west, we will be having our resources tapped very nicely and efficiently so that all of us will be benefited out of that. And in this endeavor, what Nepal can do, as we all know that climate change is there, that's basically because of, so to say, black energy and all other pollutants also. So Nepal, as you know, that is blessed with huge potential of water resources, hydropower resources. It is estimated that we have got 83,000 megawatt. But if we can tap the market of South Asia and all these regions, it can be double the minimum, otherwise it would be 200,000 megawatts. Because currently we are designing our project at Q40 or 45 level. But if we can tap all these things, we can design it for Q10 or 15 also, which would increase its capacity for the benefit of all this region. And energy from Nepal, 100% is clean, green energy. So it would offset all these SOX, NOx, all other things also. And apart from that, I mean, all of you may be knowing that the altitude more than 5,000 feet from sea level, the radiation is better. And in Nepal, high Himalayan, not high Himalayan, low Himalayan and high hills has got that potential. So we can have few more 1,000 megawatts of hydropower, solar, as well as wind energy also. So we can tap the market, or we can help to offset the black energy exists in this region. For that, interconnection is very much needed. But saying that, we do not have to rely on power pool only. There has to be bilateral, trilateral, multilateral agreements also, short-term, medium-term, long-term, day ahead, term ahead, everything. Let us try everything. There is no panacea. One solution cannot solve all the problems. So we have to have multiple solutions. Let's go for that, so that we won't be trapped into any that sort of things. With regards to Nepal, I mean, let me give you some statistics. The total installed capacity as of now is only a bit more than 2,400 megawatt. But as my colleague said, that every year we would be adding more than 1,000 megawatt every year. And by 2028, we have got planned to build 15,000 megawatt. Although there has been some upset by COVID and sort of things, but we would be chasing onto our target. So as of now, total plant under construction are 135, which amounts to 3,280 megawatt. Total projects with power purchase agreement concluded is 4,800 megawatt. Total projects with construction license, it is 8,800 megawatt. Total plants with survey license, which is 289 number, 21,263 megawatt. And total projects in government's project bank at different stages of study is 223, amounting to 15,200 megawatt. So adding up all these studied projects, we have got 47,500 megawatt. So some of them will come just next month, some of them come next year, and all of them would come after 10 or 15 years. So we can contribute to this market. And we have got, this morning, before this session, our colleague said that we have got one 400 kV transmission line to connect to India, and there are very many 132 lines. But we are at the verge of planning to connect India at least 6-7 places. And we are also thinking that we have to have one interconnection from Nepal to Bangladesh, because there is a small chicken neck which is 23 kilometers only from Nepal to Bangladesh, so which would be dedicated line also. So let's utilize all the options what we can explore, not relying into one only. So right from yesterday, or for this, I think last 4 or 5 days, everybody understood clearly and loudly that interconnection is a must. Everybody understood that interconnections gives everything to everybody of this region, starting from energy, then industrial growth, commercial growth, money, other stability also, even political stability also, and socio-economic base of the region. So by saying this, I'm thinking that the fate of this region is bright enough. The only thing is that when? Maybe after 5 years, or maybe after 15 years. Let's try, let's push hard for this, and all of us are very much convinced with this notion, and good luck to all of you, all of us, all of the people of this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. So today, in view of paucity of time, I shall limit myself to 3-4 points only. So first, the prerequisites of this cross-border trade, because that is the main topic. So one is transmission, as highlighted by other speakers. We should have adequate capacity of interconnections, and that is a prerequisite before we start thinking of any market or anything. So, and transmission again, development, there are different models. In South Asian region, we have experimented on many models. For example, Nepal, it is agreed beforehand. Then transmission systems are developed. Who will fund it? Even Bangladesh also, transmission system funding was decided in advance. So models in case of Bhutan, again, Indian portion is developed by India, and Bangladesh, Bhutan portion is developed by Bhutan. So different models are there, but transmission charge sharing has to be decided beforehand to avoid complication and delay in construction of transmission system. That is first part. Then second is this transfer capability. So our transfer capability has to be assessed to facilitate any transaction. What is the quantum that can be traded between two parts, either two countries or any two parts, that is to be decided based on available transfer capability. Then third point is this deviation settlement, because if there are two countries which are trading between themselves, and then settlement can be possible based on energy if there is only one transaction, or maximum there can be two transactions. But if you want to handle multiple transactions, then you have to settle based on schedule. Energy has to be settled based on schedule, and deviation has to be settled separately. So without that, multiple transactions cannot be handled. So this is again a prerequisite, and in case of Bhutan, in case of Bangladesh or Nepal, Muzaffarpur, Dalkewar, we have been following this model. Even subsequently, Tanakpur, Mahendranagar also, we have moved to this model. So these are the prerequisites for starting a transaction. Then coming to market, so in India already we have quite a good market developed, though it is not as good as say USA, where they have moved to locational marginal pricing or capacity market, all those things. But still, we have all the products available: long-term, medium-term, short-term, even short-term bilateral, then collective. Then just now, Mr. Kapil, they mentioned this OTC platform is also coming up. So multiple products, freedom and choice is available with the participant, all the market players, and already Nepal and Bangladesh, they are able to access our market. So this is a good development, and future, sorry, not Bangladesh, Bhutan. I'm sure in future Bangladesh will also be able to access this market. So, and gradually, once we connect other countries, so one option could be to extend this market, and that was also discussed. But that may not be a feasible option, but it will be better if you have other markets also developing their own exchanges. Then these exchanges can be coupled, similar to European Union, where each individual country, they had their own exchanges, and they are coupling through euphemia. So that would be a better option. And I think in future, with interconnection of South Asian region, yes, with Southeast Asian region and Gulf, we shall be able to harness the resources and diversity, and that will certainly help us in energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to give a perspective of the power markets from ASEAN countries, since that was the one which I got involved almost 20 years ago. As I said, we first developed Asian power grid among ASEAN public utilities, head of Asian public utilities. Since then, almost 20 years, we haven't got the power market yet. And the only interconnection that has been successfully done is between Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, which is an inland transmission, and also bilateral cooperation among these three countries, providing 300 megawatts of hydropower from Laos to Thailand, another 300 from Laos to Malaysia, and 100 megawatt from Laos to Singapore. There's also an interconnection between Sarawak and PLN in Kalimantan, and we import almost 800 gigawatt hour annually. So why, after 20 years, we haven't been able to create a power market? I think it's because the idea of power market was developed among the utilities and not necessarily got a strong support from the government at the time. There are many considerations. Of course, when you are talking about inland transmission, it is much simpler interconnection. But when you talk about subsea cables, there seems to be a lot of concern politically from the government. What are we missing now? There are about 4,000 gigawatt potential of renewables in Indonesia, which untapped now. There are a requirement of 6 gigawatt of renewables in Singapore, which we cannot meet. And Singapore has to talk with Vietnam to import directly or through cables. I mean, there are a lot of lessons learned from our seminar today in here, and I think I can elaborate a little bit that our experience, there are some hindrances to power market development beside the needs of harmonization of regulation, harmonization of standardization, and probably harmonization of structure of entities who do this situation. Yeah? And another one is we should learn from Singapore experience. Singapore, under Energy Management Authority, Energy Market Authority, has outlined a program, an approach whereby they create a power market. Singapore it is the only ASEAN countries now that has a power market, internal power market. So they invite power import from other countries to the power generation company that's already in Singapore market, and they became a quasi supplier. And of course, there are also off-takers in Singapore market. Seems to be a good strategy, but again, G2G approach has not been properly done. So the government of Indonesia, for instance, refused to give a permit for export from Indonesia to Singapore until now, at least until now. Hopefully we can solve this problem later. What these things teach us is it is most important to have a G2G understanding, especially if it's within regional cooperation. ASEAN is a good regional cooperation, but you know there are so-called Asian way of solving problems, which is not necessarily fully transparent, and many of problems were left there in the political arena without timely solution, right? So, secondly, government to government require some drive, especially from business sector. I believe that no interconnection, I mean, probably I'm exaggerating, but most interconnection can economically be done if there's a flow of power in one direction. Because that's the one that we can bet on to pay the investment cost. You see, we have in discussion with Tenaga on interconnection, which is based on balancing, and no fly. Nobody wanted to invest it. Yeah. Secondly, there's a need of government guarantee for the political risk. Nowadays, with the geopolitical situation, there are a lot of uncertainties, and I think government is expected to step in and given some kind of a political risk guarantee to the investors of this system. And thirdly, of course, harmonization is a must. So, closing to this, it's a shame that we cannot exploit the availability of renewable energy around the world. Yeah? Indonesia has 5,000 kilometers of land, sea and land, and this is the 3 time zones. You know that how much advantages if you have more than 1 time zones in solar power generation, because it then reduces the risk of so-called duck curve that happen in United States. Yeah. So working together in coordinated manner is a must. I think an event like this could create some kind of common understanding and a pressure to the regulated to regulators and to the government to speed up the process of interconnection and then the power market. Another thing that we need to emphasize is that hopefully power market does not require an entity harmonization, because based on our regulation in Indonesia, electricity is a government goods, and therefore it's not that easy to determine the price of electricity, that we don't have any markets as much as such, as happen like a daily market, whereas in Indonesia, price is single, and how can we then harmonize this with the situation? I think we should consider the way Singapore trying to circumvent this. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I've been told to close at the earliest, but we began so late I cannot. What I'm going to do, I've got a couple of thoughts. So I found a variation. I purposely asked you that question because I knew this diversity of opinion will come, and it should come. You don't start. I mean, let me give you an example of Canada itself. We have no east-west tie. I mean, everybody is talking of east-west being the first chapter of any electrical textbook is have an east-west tie because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We have 4.5 time zones. And it didn't work across because every state found no commercial benefit to have such long transmission lines with such low loads. So, right? And so everybody sort of said, it's very good for me, but then nobody wanted to pay for it. So I think in some ways this happened. The second thing is, we spoke about bilateral versus spot markets. Most jurisdictions in the world, except for the Nordic countries, which have a true spot market, and that's because of the way they are set up. Texas had it at one time, the government has pulled it back. Alberta had it at one time, and the government has pulled it back, simply because they collapsed. Okay, when you have this large price swings that takes place in the spot markets, you have an issue whereby the public is not served at some point in time. So we found that in Texas, and here is a capital state that was told through the government sector to basically have a price cap. So that issue will also come up. So the question also is, do we start with multiple bilaterals? Because right now every market in the world is is mostly bilateral, very lightly spot. Even though we call it the market clearing price and etc., but the nuclear plants of the world, the large plants of the world are all on bilateral contracts. If you look at most of the renewables also are on bilateral contracts because of the FIT tariff and things that get solutioned. So it may not be a bad strategy to say, let's start with a dialogue, perhaps an overture and something when you may want to develop this further, as I say, your first 2 slides. Who takes the first overture? How does the government-to-government dialogue begins? I think it'll be a good start. But nevertheless, everybody at least agrees on the panel that it's nice to have this interconnection and hopefully a single market. Single market poses a third constraint in my view is the prudentials. There we have a T plus, I think even India has a T plus 2. And so those all have much stringent requirements for financial prudence in order to be able to trade on those particular markets, which to some may be a little difficult. So I'll leave that at that itself. So I'm going to open it up to questions. If there are any questions, please identify yourself, direct the question to whoever you want, and we'll see if the best we can to give you an answer. Yes, sir. We'll need a mic to be sent to.
I just want to ask a question. When we are discussing about this large-scale transformation, I was just wondering when Indonesia banned the export of renewable energy, and this goes to FSR. We talk about geopolitics, but this transition will also bring a new layer of politics that we should not discount. Now, question is that how this accounting will be done. Suppose I am exporting, it goes to who's the targets. Suppose a country is exporting renewable energy to another country, who will count that I am meeting my goals? Because this is still not yet resolved at the international level. But we are talking about that through this thing we are going to meet the targets. And then if countries start thinking that if I will export renewable energy, it will meet somebody else's targets, it could have its own level of politics. Maybe if any FSR or anybody just throw light on some of this.
Thank you. You opened another Pandora's box, safe to say. One problem at a time. I think there's no straightforward answer to this. I think first is we try to cooperate and try to use our resources, as most of the panelists have rightly pointed out, and we hope for other parallel markets to solve or address that issue. But in terms of how accounting will happen, I don't think so it's just left to us as individual countries, right? We also have other frameworks that we internationally follow. So it's another battle for another day at another topic, but I think it's not impossible. At the end of the day, I think today, from every country's point of view, energy security is bigger than anything else. So I think first is to survive, then to fight. So I think, and we're talking about a region where there is two-digit economic growth happening over the next decade. So we first need to power ourselves and then figure out a way how to sort of channel it through as Asia or South Asia with other international regions. So again, I'm no expert, so I'll not directly comment, but definitely something we should look in parallel to proposing such bilateral, multilateral, and regional dialogues, definitely.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I'll take the experience of us dealing with Singapore on this. Actually, the idea of exporting renewable to Singapore came from our oil and gas industry. We have successfully export gas to Singapore through pipes, you see, and they're thinking that this can be repeated for electricity because there's an off-taker in Singapore.
But the mic coming your side.
But there is a difference in how government of Indonesia look at oil and gas and to electricity. You see, in Indonesia, electricity law has assigned PLN as the only utilities to take care of transmission, especially, and buy and sell the electricity. So, because of that law, I think government of Indonesia failed to support this effort now. But I'm sure that looking at these possibilities of exploiting these 4,000 gigawatt of potentials, which mostly located in eastern part of Indonesia, where the area is the poorest part of the country, those idea will soon replace this prohibition from the government of Indonesia. So we are working to circumvent this, but again, it requires a strong business-to-business approach and the ability of the business community to convince the government that this is a step that needs to be done despite all the geopolitical problems. Thank you.
So let me give you one other example of in the developed country where one is robbing the other person's lunch. It's between Ontario, Quebec, and the US. Ontario is largely nuclear. So at night, at least about 18, 20 times in a year, we got negative pricing because you can't shut nuclear plants down. So we sell it at a negative price to Quebec. Quebec is 95% hydroelectric. So they have enough of energy banks to bank it, to take all that at negative price. So they get the electrons and they store it and get paid. And they sell it to Bangor in the United States, which is coal-fired. So the question is your structure of the market. If you have a common understanding with a common pool structure, you eliminate this kind of price aggressiveness. But if you have a bilateral system with one selling to the other, you cannot prevent it. It will come because of the nature of the structure of the bilateral contract. So that is number one. Number two, not to get into the previous session, the weaker the link you have, the more opportunities you have for gaming such systems. If you have a very strong link, if everybody comes into a large pool and it's a rock solid pool, you rarely can get in because if the buyer and the seller have got a large pool to deal with. And so this issue comes up even partly in the Middle East, where some of the links are necessarily not large pools. And so you have a serial type connection between 10 markets, if you can call it that. So anyway, not to get into the technical details, but you are right. If you have a multiple set of bilaterals, one has the potential of gaming the other, depending on how things go. Okay, any other questions? Yes. By the way, he is also, Eddie, I, and him are the ambassadors and members of the Global Smart Energy Federation. So he represents APWA, the association.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm Abel Detela, Director General for the Association of Power Utilities of Africa. It's not a direct question, but just a comment in a return of experience, because what Eddie was saying, in Africa, we are based on regional communities. So the supranationality of the grid is already gained, so that even we have regional regulators. So the active market of the Southern African Power Pool now is more than 30 years. The next coming market is the Western African Power Pool market, a day-ahead market with a coordination center. So the utilities are trading between utilities, but they are trading between countries. So the government is only to solve conflict. If no conflict, like we said, we don't have borders. With the line, the workers of the line with one country can go and operate in another country with any visa because they are workers of the interconnection lines. But what is happening is that many countries have bilateral contracts. So we are having this bilateral contract to go to end, to come is now regional market only. So we launched in June 2021 the single electricity market principle of the African Union. So now the pools are developing the regional market to be connecting between pools. So today, the electricity of Maghreb country are already connected to Europe through Morocco. The first panel talked about it. And sometime, because of difference of time and period, Morocco is consuming solar energy produced in Morocco with the grid, because the Arab countries are heavy producing with gas, to shut down gas, taking solar energy from other side. Also, hydroenergy comes in to shut down the fossil fuel. So for us, the single market will help to enhance the renewable energy consumption in Africa, where many countries are now relying in diesel and so on. So that is the principle that we are developing. And knowing that Egypt already connected with Jordan, so we are now working with GCC, Ahmed, Ibrahim, to see how the African market is connected with the Middle East market. So that is what is going on, and is heading to be one of the largest markets in the world, because we are talking about 55 countries. Yes. Thank you so much.
One last question, and we will have this session closed. No? Okay, nice round of applause for our speakers here, please. A difficult subject, but they did very well.
Thank you, Ravi sir, for moderating this session, and thank you everyone for your sharing your valuable contributions and insightful thoughts. Now I would request Ms. Namrata Mukherjee, Deputy Chief of Party at SAARC, for closing remarks. Welcome you.
I'm actually pretty much running so that I can quickly close it. I can see fatigue in almost everybody's faces, but I have to do this. This is a very important job. So very good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure, honor to deliver the concluding remarks and vote of thanks for this roundtable today that we've gathered. We had some extremely engaging and insightful discussions in the last 2 to 3 hours, which I hope has really provided the platform that we were aiming for exchange of practitioners' experience of benefiting from regional interconnected grids. The roundtable has emphasized the transmission interconnection opportunities that exist in the BIMSTEC, SAARC, ASEAN, GCC, and South Asia region, and the role of regional institutions, forums, and power system integration inside a region and facilitating regional interconnections. I just wanted to point out on behalf of USAID, we've just concluded a 1.5-day conference today, which was held jointly with the South Asia Forum for Infrastructure Regulators, SAFIR, and USAID South Asia Regional Energy Partnership Program, that is SAREP. And I just want to highlight, 4 key messages that emerged during the deliberations, which really have a very close linkage to what got discussed today in the, last 2 sessions. And please excuse me, it will be a repetition versus, what everybody said, but I think it's still important to repeat. Number 1 is strong transmission grid interconnections in the Asian region are a necessity to optimize the seasonal, regional, resource, demand, and time diversity. I think that is a, hands-down message which has come out. Robust business models, the second point is robust business models with commercial cases are a must, which will facilitate investments for cross-border transmission interconnections. This includes the transmission cost sharing, deviation settlement mechanism related, commercial principles. Number 3 is the need for harmonized regional frameworks and mechanisms across policy, regulatory, commercial, market, and institutional aspects, which are going to be critical for deepening, the existing cross-border electricity trade and also enhancing energy security. Something which Shweta also mentioned was long-term planning of transmission networks, which is going to be critical as we're looking at, connecting different regions in the Asian, continent. And number 4 is multiple technical options are available for modernizing the regional grid, and multiple regions getting integrated. This is the time for us to now start collectively looking at, building a future-ready grid, because things like this take time. So if you don't start thinking about how we modernize the regional grid, then it becomes late. So I think today's roundtable reiterated that one of the most important areas for development of interconnecting regional grids shall be developing successful business models for developing and financing of cross-border electricity trade transmission interconnections, which will facilitate achieving the One Sun, One World, One Grid vision and other such energy cooperation initiatives, which will contribute towards bringing down carbon emissions and enabling clean energy transition. It is therefore now time for me to propose in this context a vote of thanks to the key contributors who made this successful roundtable. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Shri Arun Goel ji, who joined us for the inaugural section of the roundtable. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the partners of this roundtable discussion. Shri Reggie Kumar Pillai from ISGF, Mr. Matthew Cray from European Commission, and Ms. Monalizia Hazra from USAID. I'd like to thank all the distinguished moderators and speakers for making this roundtable so engaging and enriching for all of us here. Please bear with me. I would like to individually call out everybody's name. Mr. V.K. Agarwal, Mr. Sonam Tobje, Mr. Abdur Rashid Khan, Mr. Durganand Bariat, Mr. Rajesh Kumar, Mr. Pankaj Khurana, Rajiv, my colleague, Mr. Ravi Sithapati, Shweta Ravi Kumar, Mr. S.S. Barpanda, Mr. Dilip Bahadur Singh, Mr. Nima Shering, Mr. Kapil Dev, and Mr. Eddie Vidinho. Can we have a big round of applause for all the speakers and moderators? Special thanks to all the speakers who've traveled from different parts of the region to come and participate in person. You will all agree that an in-person discussion enriches everybody more than what we've been used to in the last 2-3 years. So thank you a lot. I would also like to thank colleagues from USAID, SAREP and ISGF for working round the clock to contribute towards making this program successful. Again, I'm just going to call out a few names. Reggie Pillai, Reena Suri Bala from ISGF, Monalizia Hazra from USAID for always being our anchor and pushing us hard. SAREP team members, Pramod Thakur, Rajiv Ratnapanda, Ajit Kumar, Farah Ahmed, Bhumika Suri. Last but not the least, we have few participants left, but nevertheless express my deep gratitude to all of you for staying this late and for participating in the roundtable. Finally, on behalf of USAID South Asia Regional Energy Partnership Program, we look forward to engaging deeply, especially with the European Commission, in the coming months to work together towards supporting regional integration of the grids in South Asia, ASEAN, GCC, and the BIMSTEC region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Mr. Sithapati to hand over the token of appreciation to our panelists. Starting with Ms. Shweta Ravi Kumar. Mr. S.S. Barpanda. Mr. Nima Shering. Mr. Dilip Bahadur Singh. Mr. Kapil Dev. Mr. Eddie. Ms. Namrata Mukherjee.